We'll open the lines for a presidential check-in with you. What do you make of the Harris campaign's media blitz in the final stretch? Trump's incoherent ramblings and attacks on Detroit while in Detroit. Musk all out for Trump, Obama all out for Harris. The polls are tight. We want to hear your thoughts heading into the final stretch.
I'm Marjorie Egan. It's Live Music Friday. We'll speak with Gil Rose, founder and general artistic director of Odyssey Opera, ahead of a first-of-its-kind opera production fusing political satire and music. And yes, we'll hear some music too. Then later in the show, father and daughter duo Ken and Sarah Burns zoom in to talk about their great film on the life of Leonardo da Vinci. All that and more ahead. Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. The long cleanup and recovery is just beginning in Florida. Hurricane Milton left behind a path of damage and destruction from the state's Gulf Coast to the Atlantic. At least 8 people died. Serious flooding isn't over in some communities, and power outages are widespread. The Category 3 storm made landfall Wednesday in Siesta Key, about 70 miles south of Tampa. Volunteers from across the country are still in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee to help people there recovering from Hurricane Helene. It made landfall almost 2 weeks ago, killing more than 230 people. NPR's Jeff Brady reports on a Texas couple that's volunteered at a dozen disaster sites this year alone.
In a flooded White House near Jonesboro, Tennessee, the religious group Texans on Mission are removing a hardwood floor. Ann Neal is the chaplain.
I spend a lot of time with the homeowner, hugging on them, loving on them, listening to them, letting them tell their story.
She and her husband, Kurt Neal, joined the group after retiring.
We've been to Poland, we've been to Israel, we've been to Cuba, we've been a lot of different places, Hawaii. We were in Lahaina, Kauai last year to help with the fires there.
Just down the road, other volunteers turned a neighborhood bar into a collection and distribution center for donated supplies. Jeff Brady, NPR News, Jonesboro, Tennessee.
A disaster loan program for small businesses could run out in a matter of weeks if Congress doesn't act. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports that back-to-back hurricanes have put a major strain on current funds.
Speaking at the White House on Thursday, President Biden said funding for the Small Business Disaster Loan Program was right at the edge.
I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on emergency needs immediately. And they're going to have to come back after the election as well, because this is going to be a long haul for total rebuilding.
Biden says he hasn't spoken to House Speaker Mike Johnson about bringing Congress back to take up the issue. In a statement, the Small Business Administration said it will continue sharing information about its disaster loan programs and assisting borrowers, but if funding lapses, all new offers would be delayed until additional money is approved. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
On the campaign trail, Vice President Harris will speak at an event in Scottsdale, Arizona today. Donald Trump is making remarks in Aurora, Colorado. The former president is expected to focus on immigration. The city's mayor and police chief have refuted claims by Trump and others about Venezuelan gang activity in the Denver suburb. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A conservative group known as the Voter Reference Foundation is suing Massachusetts Secretary of State Bill Galvin over the state's voter records. Globe reports that the group wants Galvin to put a database of the state's voter rolls online. It's something they've been pushing other secretaries of state for nationwide. Attorneys for the group filed a lawsuit against Galvin in federal court on Wednesday. Massachusetts has hit a new one-year low when it comes to the average price of gasoline. The Cape Cod Times reports that prices fell for the second consecutive week at an average of $3.01 per gallon for regular fuel on Monday. That's down from last week's price of $3.02 per gallon. The data shows that gas prices across the state in the last year have been as low as $3.01, which is where we are now, and as high as $3.76 in August of last year. And what a light show it was last night. People across New England, including on the Cape and Islands, were treated to the Northern Lights, a colorful show in the skies last night. the likes of which haven't been seen in years. Many people have posted photos on the striking displays on social media. The northern lights are actually an eruption of solar material and magnetic fields that bring colorful auroras over much of the northern half of the country. They are rarely seen in New England, especially on the Cape and Islands, and there might be another opportunity to see them tonight as well. Bruins Celtics Revolution all in action tomorrow. Patriots host Houston on Sunday. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you. And streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A few programming notes, Jim. Mm-hmm. We're going to be joined here on Tuesday by the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. She's going to take our questions and yours, as will the Governor, Maura Healey, on Wednesday, again, right here at the library. You can see them both in person. And we are going to have, I think this is a first for us, Jim, a zoom in from outer space.
It is.
Sunita Williams, one of the astronauts that's up there in space for a little longer than she expected to be. NASA has a countdown clock about this on their website.
About her appearing on our show.
Yes.
Not about coming back to Earth, right?
NASA has
That's
a countdown for
it's really
GBH.
great.
I don't think they named Jim and Margie, but that's okay. They say GBH.
We're negotiating
that, that's right. And so we're going to talk to her from outer space via Zoom.
11:40 on Wednesday.
That's right. And there are 5 ballot questions on the ballot in November, and we're going to have debates on every single one of them starting on Monday, and they're going to be at every day next week at 11 o'clock.
You're supposed to say hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Marjorie. How are you? And by the way, you know what you also didn't mention? Fabulous and fun music is about maybe 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
It's the Gershwins in a way that I don't think most people are used to them. And we heard the performers this morning. It's spectacular. So either stick around or show up. So I'm going to play a little sound to start out this Friday of the Republican candidate for president, that'd be Donald Trump, at a rally yesterday. Here he is.
The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president.
Okay, so where was Trump when he was trashing Detroit, Marjorie?
He was in Detroit.
In Detroit, exactly. So if you missed that moment from the former president, we couldn't blame you. With only 25 days to go until election day, there's enough going on to make the average person's head spin. So we want to take some time today to hear how you're feeling when it comes to the race for the presidency. Our number to call or text is 877-301-8970. A lot of questions. Is there anywhere in the world that Trump benefits from trashing the city he's speaking in? I think the answer is yes. Has 4 or 5 days of nonstop hurricane coverage done damage to the Harris campaign? James Carville thinks the answer is yes. What do you think about Kamala Harris not directly answering some of the tough questions? And what do you make of Elon Musk emerging as the primary surrogate for this dark MAGA Trump thing, while Barack Obama started yesterday on a 27-day or 26th day or something battleground blitz for Harris? All things presidential at 877-301-8970. You know, I have a different perspective on that. What do you think of the Detroit thing from Trump?
Well, apparently people that were there in the hall were a lot of wealthy white businessmen.
Exactly.
So maybe they didn't think it was so horrible that he was trashing Detroit in Detroit. And the other thing is, I'm no expert on Detroit, but from what I've read, things are starting to turn around in Detroit. That real estate was so cheap for a while because of widespread economic problems there, and then people then came in and started buying up these cheaper houses, and so it's on a turnaround, as they say. But generally speaking, if somebody came, as somebody said in one of these interviews, it's one thing for me to criticize Boston. It's somebody. But I don't want to hear somebody come here from San Francisco and criticize Boston.
Well, I heard that too, but I think your first analysis is the right one. I think he was coming into the room saying, you know what Detroit is? A lot of scary black people, everybody. they're going to take over this country if you elect Kamala Harris. And as you said, it was primarily an audience of wealthy white business people. And if you listen after he made that nauseating comment about Detroit, you know what they did? They applauded. They're business leaders in Detroit. At the same time, Elon Musk is going all over the place. And you say to yourself, Trump's got Musk. Harris has Barack Obama, who I think is still one of the most electric presences probably everywhere. In fact, let's play a little clip of him to inject a little life into this whole thing. Here he is yesterday. He was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he was talking about how young men, particularly young black men, are attracted to the strength of Donald Trump. But he says that's not real strength. Here's what he had to say.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. I am here to tell you that is not what real strength is. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient.
Okay, so when I watched Obama last night on television, I was like a puddle of goo. I mean, he was so good and so powerful and so right on. It was incredible.
I blame Barack Obama for taunting Donald Trump into running. We all remember when he...
The White House press correspondence dinner.
When Obama's got really good comedic timing, and he was up giving a little talk at the White House press conference. He talked about how, it's going to be tough to be the Donald. Is Meatloaf going to be fired from The Apprentice, or is roast beef sandwich going to be fired for The Apprentice? He ridiculed him, and Trump went crazy. But I know that Trump...
And people close to Trump say that's why he decided to run. Yeah.
But I know that Trump saw him last night, and I know it must have gotten under his skin. Because you see Obama come out. He's got the white hair now, but he looks like he weighs about 120 pounds. He looks like he's in great shape. He comes trotting out. He's got oozing charisma with that great smile. And getting up there and ridiculing Donald Trump yet again. He talks about...
I was disappointed he didn't jump up and down like Elon Musk. That was really disappointing.
But when he talks about the things that Donald does that are so weird, like talking about how he's selling these Bibles and having printed in China. He says, selling everything. He's selling this, he's selling that, he's selling the other thing. He said, who does that? Who does that? So anyway, I got some pleasure out of the fact that must have annoyed the Donald last night.
One last thing before we get to your calls and texts at 877-301-8970. It's basically a catch-up with just a couple of dozen days to go, which is incredible, till the election day, till November 5th. When I heard James Carville, who I assume most people know was the key advisor to the Clinton campaign, and a pretty savvy, really strange, but savvy guy, he said, I am very, very worried about the Harris campaign. And what he was talking about was that when she arguably was hitting her stride in messaging, that 4 or 5 days, there was no coverage of the presidential campaign other than how they intersected with the hurricane, that it was all hurricane all the time. And I tend to agree with that, and it is worrisome, I think, if you're a Harris supporter, as to whether or not that got her and Walz off their game.
Well, I'll give you a one hand and the other hand on that,
Please.
too. On the one hand, I saw this woman on television looking at the devastation of her neighborhood in Florida with just... can't even begin, debris everywhere, trees down, flooding everywhere. And she was interviewed by a reporter, and the reporter asked something like, how do you feel about coming back here or staying here? She said, well, this is a once in 100-year kind of thing. This isn't probably going to happen again. And the reporter says, well, actually, this is related to climate change because of the heat in the water in the Gulf, that these storms get bigger and more ferocious and stuff like that. So on the one hand, you had people like that who didn't see any connection at all to climate change, to this disaster that keeps happening in Florida. On the other hand, you have a lot of other people that may have been on the fence who may say, we've got a climate change denier running for president. Look at what's happening here and in North Carolina and the wildfires. And there may be some people on the fence that might be moved, I hope, by climate change.
877-301-8970. Diane in Fairhaven, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, guys.
Hi.
My opinion, if anybody can watch Jimmy Kimmel's show from last night, stream it or something, he had an excellent monologue, and he pointed out several things, one including at that podium in Detroit, in between a couple of his sentences, and he farted loud enough for it to be
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. That really sort of created a great feel for the show.
Diane.
Yeah, and he, you know, on top, and the stupid things he says, I just can't believe people think he should be running our country.
Well,
And,
thanks for
but
updating
anyway.
us on the body function news. We appreciate that. Diane, thank you so much for the call. 877-301-8970 is our number.
You know, Ron from Rhode Island says he's a lifelong Democrat. Harris has been trying to walk a tightrope. She's not differentiated herself from Biden. She made a mistake, to me, in The View, by not differentiating herself more from Biden, and she's lost some support from young voters because of Netanyahu, the war. But he points out that you got to wonder how much this is hurting her. He says, Ron, I fear that the boys' club is still closed to women of color, and
I worry about that too.
She's not only the first woman who would be the president, she's a woman of color, and I think that there's, you know, she got the double whammy, the racism and the misogyny.
Well, can I do an imitation of you on one hand and on the other? Yes, I agreed with you. In fact, we were talking about live when she was on The View a couple of days ago about not being able to answer or not choosing to answer the differentiation from Biden. Where'd you disagree? And then later she says, I'd have a Republican in the cat, which is really not responsive.
Weak.
But the flip side is she also doesn't claim any credit for some incredible things he's done, which the vast majority of people in this country, because the Biden administration is so horrible at messaging, don't even know that he's done. That matters. When you go into some states, for example, where a chips factory is being built, hiring thousands and thousands of workers. Ohio is a good place. It's probably out of reach, but I think there's only a 5-point margin between Harris and Trump there. Talk about the achievements, and a skillful politician can celebrate the achievements of your tenure as vice president, not as president, at the same time that creating some distance. And I think she's frankly failed at both, which makes me very nervous.
You know, it is so funny how kind of a non-issue where everybody, how many people in the country are bankrupt because of medical debt? You know, it's a big deal. We can't afford.
Single largest cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States is medical debt for people who have insurance.
So why they're not talking every day about unfortunately it's not already happened, but in 2026, these prescription drugs are going to come way down.
Great point,
so many
Marjorie.
people can't afford their medication. We would hear these horrible stories.
And the cap on overall, drug expenses.
$2,000 a year is the most you're going to have to pay out of pocket in Medicare. And Medicare is when most people are retired and they don't have the income coming in for their job. But also diabetes. Remember we used to talk about how people were dying because they couldn't afford their insulin?
Yeah.
He got that down, right? Biden did.
You know what Trump said a few weeks ago? That he did it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to talk to a psychiatrist later on about the state
I'm so psyced for that conversation.
Donald Trump's mental health, whether he believes this stuff or whether he just says it because he thinks he can get away with lying, which basically he has been able to do.
For a
anyway,
lifetime,
that's right. We're talking about the presidential race 24 days out from the election and how your nerves are. We haven't taled about that.
Well, we know how your nerves are.
Well, I'm a nervous wreck. The conversation continues after a quick break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah.
I want to tell you we have two of my favorite things today here for prizes today. Not prizes, but they're enticements to get you to.
They're gifts.
Now, think about this.
Gifts.
In this tragedy in Florida,
here she goes.
How great would it have been to get the... Hear it?
What is that, Marjorie?
This is the Eton Crank Radio.
Oh.
This is this radio that gives you weather reports. They can charge things up. It's a flashlight. It gives you the National Weather Service channel.
You need batteries, Marjorie?
You do not, because you crank it like this.
Oh, okay.
This is one of our tried and true enticements, and we have it today, the Eton Crank Radio. But these do really... in a hurricane, which you've been talking about all week long, can make a very big difference. And then we have the GBH dry bag. I want to tell you that every day I went to the beach this summer, here's the dry bag on the outside. with the GBH logo, and then this side's clear, right? So you can put stuff in there that you don't want to get full of sand, like your phone, and then you roll it up like this, and you put it in your little beach bag.
Then you lose the bag, right?
You don't lose the bag. I still have my bag.
I don't think so.
So anyway, these are two of the things that we are offering today for...
No, both, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
There's two of the things we're offering today. You get for $12.50 a month, or $150 all at once, you get the GBH dry bag as a combo with the Eton Crank radio. And, I mean, you can't beat it, Jim.
What a combo.
You really can't beat it. Here's the number, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
By the way, Marjorie is totally sincere. She is.
I am
if you could
sincere.
see the excitement on this woman's face when she's cranking that baby, crank it again for a second, can you please? And in all seriousness, for an emergency, you carry around in your car.
Yep.
You can. The most attractive thing to me is not just the flashlight and the AM, FM, and the National Weather Service channel, is the fact that you can charge stuff that is dead by just cranking that thing, etc. But let me say what I say every single day, and I mean it. If you are giving money because you want the emergency crank radio and the dry bag, there's something wrong here. You should be giving money, if you choose to, because you value what you hear from our colleagues every single day of the week. And if you do, this is a nice additional kind of thing, and we hope you do. So you call 888-897-9424. You go online at gbhnews.org. As Marjorie said, for $12.50 or $150 all at once, you get those two gifts. And if you can't afford that or don't want to do that much, do whatever you can to be part of this. Support what you value. $5 once, $500 once if you can. Whatever you can give. Join the operation here, and I can tell you, I speak for every single person who works on the air and behind the scenes. We thank you. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Attorney General here for an hour on Tuesday. Governor here for an hour on Wednesday with us. And as Marjorie said, we're really excited. Sunita Williams from the International Space Station is going to zoom in at 11:40 on Wednesday. A little bit later in the show, in the 1 o'clock hour, Ken Burns and his fellow filmmaker and daughter, Sarah Burns, who've done this fabulous film about Leonardo da Vinci, are going to join us to talk about that. Now, if you're just joining us, we're doing a pre-election check-in, all things presidential election. Get your concerns, your things that make you feel good, things that worry you at 877-301-8970. You know what also troubles me, which I had put on a back burner in my head? The fact there's not another debate in this is really a crime. One debate, and the final debate is the I was going to say the assistants. I don't mean to cheapen the vice president's role, but the vice president is just wrong. I mean, there should have been another debate. We know why there's not another debate, because Trump got crushed in the first debate and doesn't want to get crushed again. But the American, they're entitled to hear from these candidates, and apparently they will not.
Here's a texter who says, Marjorie, make your appointment now with a therapist, because in 25 days, you're really going to need one.
Well, by the way, Michigan, one of the 3 critical Rust Belt states this morning, woke up 49-49. And by the way, one of the things they've said, poll people, including the great John King and Chuck Todd on our show, say Trump almost never hits, in fact, I don't think he has hit 50. He's at 49% tied in Michigan. That is a really high number. And it's concerning if people care about the democracy. Lisa,
and I'm always interested when people call and say that they're for Trump. Why? What are the policies that they embrace? People talk about the economy being better, but as we know, almost every economist now says this tariff thing would be an absolute nightmare if he did do it for the economy. And tax cuts for wealthy people, at least the Democrats want to give tax breaks to people that are making below $400,000, because I think if you're making above $400,000...
it's amazing you say this, by the way. Every day when I ask a question like that, you say, people don't believe it. Well, that's the answer to your own point just now.
Don't believe
People
what?
don't believe the bad things about Trump, nor do they believe the good things about Harris's policy. They're in this bubble, as you described to me all the time.
But what are the good things about Trump's policy? Besides,
he's a tough guy. He's not going to take any... He's going to settle the war in Ukraine in 5 minutes. He's going to settle the situation in Gaza. I mean, that's... Lisa and Wellesley, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Next on Boston Public Radio. Hey there, what's up?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I am a bundle of nerves about this election, but I'm calling in to put in a plug for doing something, because that's the only thing that helps me. I am phone banking into swing states and finding that it's really effective and great for my nerves. I'm
good.
Incredulous, like reaching people actually who aren't sure they're going to vote, don't think they're going to vote, but having conversations, and at the end of the call, they're going to vote. They're saying, great, like, let's hope she wins. Nothing else is going to make me feel better, but just doing something. So I want to put
That's
in
great.
for that.
Lisa, can I understand something? I think I understand.
Yes.
You're calling people who are at least leaning or planning on voting for Harris, and the purpose of your call, correct me if I'm wrong, is to make sure they vote. You're not trying to convince someone that Harris is a suitable alternative to Trump, but rather you're a likely Harris supporter, go vote. Is that what you're doing?
Well, quite frankly, what I'm doing is through events.democrats.org. There's different ways to call. And I'm calling, as it turns out, sometimes I'm calling people who are going to vote Republican. Sometimes there are people just who are not sure. It's sort of I never really know who I'm going to get.
Well, good
but
for you.
honestly, people on the other end, I'm respectful about it. People are respectful. I just ask for a minute of their time. And people are willing to talk. And I'm talking to people, people who aren't sure they're going to vote. Or know they don't like Trump, but don't know enough about Harris, and we're having those just short conversations, and people can be convinced. So your listeners are like me. There's so many of us who, we're educated, we're informed. It's sort of still surprising how many people just aren't. Get involved. Events.democrats.org is you can check out that website. There's so many different ways.
Lisa, we got to go. We got a lot of calls. Thank you very much, and it's great you're doing what you're doing. I mean, engagement is the key to a democracy. 301-8970.
Here's a couple of texts. I'd like to see an October surprise. Jill Stein announcing she's withdrawing from the race to support Harris. The environment and fighting climate change are critical. Trump will be a disaster. A vote for Stein is a vote for Trump in this race. And here's Aaron in Hopkinton who says, this election is making me physically sick. After 1-6, that was the the attempt to overthrow the government, I was sure Trump would be tried for treason. Now, no hyperbole. My wife and I are seriously considering taking our daughters and relocating to Canada if Trump wins. If Harris wins, I'm never watching the news in another election cycle. It's all fear-baiting crud.
Let's go to Mark in Belchertown. Welcome to the show, Mark. Thank you for calling.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
This is my second time calling into the show.
Thank you.
So I wanted to speak. I voted for Biden in 2020, and I've seen this concerning trend amongst the American left regarding their skepticism towards the Constitution.
Where do you
Harris,
where do you see skepticism towards the Constitution in what you call the American left? Where's the skepticism?
Yeah, New York Times in particular has published a variety of opinion articles regarding their belief that the American Constitution is a blockage towards progressivism.
Mark, can I tell you, I read the New York Times every day. I would like to see one story in the New York Times where they believe that the Constitution is an obstacle to important things in our democracy. I've never. They may disagree with the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Constitution. Well, they should, but the underlying premise I haven't seen. But go ahead for a minute and fill us in.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this is more approach to Kamala Harris's thoughts and policies regarding the Constitution.
Yeah.
She's spoken in her belief that the First Amendment is a privilege. She believes in
Mark, I'm sorry. I hate to cut you off, but you're just not. This is not factually based.
Sorry, Mark.
She does not. It is not. I have never. If you, Mark, I promise you. You email us bpr@wgbh.org. One example
articles
where she has said the First Amendment rights are privileges, and we'll have you on Monday for as long as you want.
But that's one of the big things. Did you hear J.D. Vance over and over and over again talking about Kamala Harris wanting to censor? That's where that comes from.
Katrina in Millis, I think. Welcome to the show. Hi, Katrina.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I've actually called a few times within this last year. I obviously have a lot of feelings. So I wanted to bring up kind of a two-pronged comment. First, I'd really like to point people to Kamala Harris's recent interview on the Call Her Daddy podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's wildly popular, especially with young women, but young women all over the country, like really across all
she's got
lines.
This is the Alex Cooper thing, right?
Several million
and it
followers.
was
Yeah.
Like 10 million. And then
10
the other
million.
thing
Thank you.
that I keep remembering is during the 22 midterms, everyone felt like it was going to be the end of the world with the red wave, and it didn't happen. And then I kind of felt like, oh, go figure. Women want human rights. And they showed up, and it didn't happen. So I'm trying to think positively about that, that women will show up, even women who are maybe married to Trump men. And when they get in the booth privately, they'll make that call. So that's a bit of optimism.
Good.
Oh, Katrina, I so hope you are right. I like to think that the women of America don't want to be almost dead before they have to, before it's okay to get medical intervention that they need. I mean, because basically that's what Trump and his policies have brought us.
Exactly. I don't think I don't think women should be underestimated. And really, that podcast was fabulous. And it's such a huge popular young women platform. I thought it was brilliant.
Thanks again.
Katrina,
As I said,
thank
it's
you.
Alex Cooper, and people have raved about it. Thanks so much for the call, Katrina. We got a break, Marjorie.
Okay, we got a break. That's unfortunate. I was just getting warmed up here, Jim. But we got some great
You have
music
2.5
coming up.
hours left to get
we got
stay
some
warm,
absolutely great music that you're going to hear in just a second. They're calling it the Gershwin Double Bill. Two musicals become one, and political satire from the era of Mussolini and Hitler offer some insights on present-day election chaos. Gil Rose and the players from the Boston Modern Orchestra Project join us next for Live Music Friday. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, so here's the deal. Marjorie is in exultation because there is nothing, and I repeat, nothing she likes like the Eton emergency crank
That's right.
radio. And I have to say,
I'll crank
I'm with
it
you
for
on
you.
this. Please crank it while I'm speaking. Thank you very much. That is the cranking in the background. And you know what that cranking gets? It gets the AM, FM, and National Weather Service channel.
Nice antenna.
They are it is? That's a very pretty antenna, thank you. Multiple power sources because of this hand crank. They have solar power thing I don't think we mentioned before. The most important thing is you don't need batteries. You still have an LED flashlight, etc. And in addition to this, you get this dry bag with a GBH logo, which Marjorie says, and I think she's telling the truth, she uses regularly when she goes to the beach during the summer. Any of your stuff gotten dry?
No,
Wet?
No, it is not. And the best thing
Excellent.
is you can see through it. See,
No.
so you know where everything is. Yes.
That is fabulous.
Your lipsticks, your lip gloss, your
That's
suntan
incredible.
lotion.
Now
you don't want to get sand all over your suntan lotion?
Nobody does.
Or your sunscreen, I should say.
No, you don't. Exactly. So for $12.50 a month, and is that right? 12? Yes, it is. And $150 all at once, you get that thing. The deadline, Marjorie, I don't think you said this, and this matters to you, is 2 o'clock today. These two enticements, as you call them, disappear at 2 o'clock. So call now, 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Yeah, it really is a pleasure to get these messages from you, and people donate. We get these nice little notes from people saying why they like to watch the station. And as Jim says, it isn't really because they want to get these prizes, even though the Eton Crank Radio and the dry bag are really great. We are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are on 3 hours a day, and it is free. So the drawback is that somebody's going to pay for this whole thing, and more than 70% of our money comes from the generosity of listeners like you. So the number again is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org, and we appreciate whatever you feel inclined to give.
Welcome back back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, thank you all. Live at the library. Streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Starting Monday, every single day next week at 11 o'clock, we will do a debate on one of the 5 ballot questions. We're going to tweet out which is which day at the Boston Public Radio site in a little bit. And after the ballot question debates with the principals, you will be able to call in and weigh in on those questions as well. Tomorrow night at the New England Conservatory's great Jordan Hall, our next guests are performing the work of American songwriting giants George and Ira Gershwin in a way that is totally singular and proof of the old Mark Twain adage that history doesn't repeat itself, but often rhymes. 2 musicals, 2 satires of a twisted political system with 2 totally different legacies. One a Pulitzer Prize-winning hit, the other a forgotten flop made whole in a first-of-its-kind union. Taking a break from rehearsals to join us via Zoom is Grammy-winning Gil Rose. He's the mind behind this and founder of the Boston Modern Orchestra Project and Odyssey Opera. We'll talk to Gil in a second. Also with us in person, the President and First Lady, Aaron Engelbrecht and Heather Buck. Aaron's baritone, performing on Saturday, is President John P. Wintergreen, and Heather is a soprano playing Aaron's wife, Mary Turner. For information and tickets, you can go to bmop.org. That's bmop.org. We'll talk to everybody in a second, but first we're going to hear them perform Who Cares? Aaron Engelbrecht and Heather Buck, President and First Lady, performing Who Cares? They're going to join us up at the counter here in a second. Also joining us on Zoom is the guy, the brain behind all this, for lack of a better expression, Gil Rose. Gil, welcome to the show.
Oh, glad to be here.
We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Gil, and congratulations on this effort. So tell us, for people who don't know, and I don't know much about it either, tell us about the Boston Modern Orchestra Project and Odyssey Opera. What are these?
Well, these are 2 fabulous musical organizations here in Boston. The Boston Modern Orchestra Project is in its 27th year, a real Boston institution. They play and record music written basically within the last 100 years. So our Gershwin evening fits just on the outside window of our repertoire. And Odyssey Opera is an opera company formed about 12 years ago to explore, to present and explore operas that you otherwise wouldn't hear. Often the least known opera of the most famous composer is sort of how it always works out.
And is that what this is? Is this the least well-known opera of 2 enormously famous composers, the Gershwin brothers?
Well, certainly 2 famous composers and librettists. You know, the general public knows George Gershwin from An American in Paris and Rhapsody in Blue and all these great things, but I don't know how many people realize that George and his brother Ira were the hit of Broadway from the late 20s to the time of George's death in 1937. They wrote about 12 musicals. These are 2 of them, but most of their actual output is for the musical theater. And I hope people will come hear it because it will remind them a lot of the music they know, but it will be also a lot of discoveries in the evening.
So President Wintergreen of The I Sing was the Pulitzer Prize winner. 2 years later, Let 'Em Eat Cake. Give people a little feel of what they're going to get tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, yes.
Sure, yeah. You're going to get a lot of fun, honestly. And there's a lot of anxiety.
Fun is so outdated.
Fun is really needed right now.
Go ahead.
I mean, even as evidence from the first half hour of the show, there's a lot of anxiety out there. People are nervous about a lot of things. And one of the things that people are going to get if they come to this show is just a lot of laughs. This is a parody. This is lampooning the American political system. And it's taking some things that are very outsized and make us feel really nervous, kind of regardless of where people are aiming their support. And you laugh really hard at it. You laugh at a lot of different foibles. John P. Wintergreen is a presidential candidate who is a bachelor, and that's a real problem. And so his advisors get together and they devise this plan whereby there's going to be a beauty contest to find a first lady, and he will have to marry this, beautiful woman from someplace in the United States. And he has a one-subject platform. He runs on the platform of love. And the woman who is running the beauty contest is this very sensible Mary Turner, who says, "Oh, you get your pick of the land," and of course he falls immediately in love with her.
Who wouldn't?
Well, I know. Well,
Yeah.
Mary Turner makes a really good corn muffin.
She makes corn muffins.
So,
yeah.
That was it.
way to
I
a
love
guy's
that.
stomach.
Well, that made me admire the president anymore. It wasn't the beauty of the woman, it was the beauty of the corn muffins. And there you
Yes.
go.
A little bit of both.
Hey, Heather, what's it like singing Gershwin? I mean, we had Mayor Wu was here the other day with us, and she just finished a concert for the city playing Rhapsody in Blue with the BSO.
Glorious.
And she was like exultant, to say the least. What's it like singing Gershwin?
It is a kind of music that I can't stop tapping my toe. My hip is constantly going with it. It's magical. I've done a lot of very contemporary music, a lot of early music, everything in between. But there's something about this. There's an innocence to it, a joy. It's unbridled enjoyment.
Gil, this was almost 100 years ago. I think 1932, correct me if I'm wrong, was of The I Sing, and Let 'Em Eat Cake 2 years later. So did you have to update this stuff, or was it as relevant today? I would think it is, as it was then.
Yeah, as we got into it, we discovered, this all came about because I realized that these two musicals could be put together in one evening.
Yeah.
Very seldom is there musical sequels, but this was a sequel. The same characters returned and the story continued. So we've condensed it all to a one evening event. We've eliminated a lot of the dialogue and cut the music down a little bit, but it presents all the great tunes. And what we discovered in putting that show together was that, unbeknownst to them, the Gershwin brothers hit on almost every political and social issue that we're facing today. Yeah. Of course, they didn't know they were being present, but they talk about all sorts of things that will reach the audience. And in doing that, we decided very early on there was no need to underline the parallels to today's political environment, that they spoke completely for themselves. And so we're performing the show in the style that the Gershwin brothers would have expected it to be delivered.
Well, except I have to quarrel with you, Gil. I mean, how ridiculous to have a president who's trying to overthrow an election. That would never happen in this country, so I'm sorry.
Or doing it by trying to sell clothing merchandise and offering autographed pictures of himself for sale.
That's right.
And Bibles made in China.
The parallels are all there. We're going to take a quick break, but then we're going to come back and talk some more with the folks behind of The I Sing and Let 'Em Eat Cake, which is going to be performed tomorrow night at Jordan Hall. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support, so please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
You know what I was thinking about? I mean, just look at today. Oh, you want to go first?
Well, I just want to say, look what we're getting today.
It's exactly what I was going to say.
And we get every Friday some of the most talented musicians around Boston. We have bands, we have opera, we have this. I guess it's an opera, right? It's an opera. Wouldn't you call it an opera? Of course it's an opera. I mean, all these most talented people right here for free. You can listen to them on the air. You can come down here and see them for yourself.
And also Ken Burns and Sarah Burns are going to join us at 1 o'clock. One of the great filmmakers, two of the great filmmakers in America right now about Leonardo, their project. Dr. Leonard Glass, who was one of the psychiatrists that wrote, what was it called, The Dangerousness of Donald Trump. We talked a lot about that. It's all today. And then next week you get the governor, the attorney general, Sunita Williams zooming in from outer space. You get a lot here, and you get a huge amount from our wonderful colleagues, too, who are really talented. And if you share even any of those sentiments, you go to 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org and give what you can. I mean, whatever you can, even if it's only a couple of bucks. If you're having a tough time, then do that. If you're doing well, then maybe make up for somebody who's having a tough time and give a little bit more. And if you can do $12.50 a month or $150 all at once, what do they get, Marjorie, again?
You're going to get the Eton Crank radio, which is a real wonderful thing to have if the weather is bad. And you get the beach, the bag. That's not what it's called. It's called the dry bag, I guess.
Dry bag, yeah.
But what it is, I think the beach is where it really helps. You can bring it anywhere, but where you want to keep things in a bag that's really lightwaight and see-through.
If you want to take stuff in the tub, you take it with you in the tub. You take the dry bag in the tub,
That's
right?
If you'd like to make your phone calls, listen to podcasts in the tub.
I would.
The dry bag is the place to keep it. So again, the number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. This is our pledge drive for this fall. We have these, 2 or 3 times a year,
Something
I guess.
like that, yeah.
And the reason we have them is because we are listener-supported radio. More than 70% of our budget comes from the contributions of generous people like you that are listening today. So if you like what you hear, you want to hear this great music, you want to hear interviews with really interesting people, we're trying to do our best here, and I think you enjoy it. We want to keep our jobs, Jim, and we want you to keep enjoying it. So
that's
the
real
number
reason,
again,
of course.
That's right. That's very important to me. I like my job. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just joining us, we are talking with Grammy winner Gil Rose, Aaron Engelbrecht, who plays President Wintergreen, Heather Buck, who plays his wife. We just heard beautiful story, Who Cares from them, and fun. I'm so glad you said that word. Almost nobody ever says fun anymore, Aaron. That's great. And if you want to get tickets or get information, you go to bmop.org.
Yeah, we're going to hear another song in just a second about the First Lady and the First Gent. But I just wanted to ask, maybe Gil is the person to ask this. I know you're performing this in one night only, and it's in Jordan Hall, and Jordan Hall is a hall. It's not a theater with all the accoutrements of a theater. So why one night, and what does it mean difficulty-wise to do this in Jordan Hall?
Well, Jordan Hall is a fabulous acoustic and venue, but it's designed for concert music, not for theatrical music. So there's really no proscenium. It's a place where you would see an orchestra or a chorus perform. So we had to adapt what we did to tell the story, but to still do it from on stage in a concert setting. So we have some beautiful costumes, and we have some fun gags that happen, but mostly it looks like a concert with the orchestra on stage and chorus on stage. And why one night only? Well, when I turn away people at the door, I'll open the second night. So if everybody's down, we'll just find a way to do it again, I promise. But we're hoping to fill that lovely hall with this amazing music and these great performers.
It is a great hall, and it's a great place to listen to people perform. You know, Aaron, one of the things, Marjorie mentioned this in passing, is that Gil, when he's written about, is often talked about as celebrating works that are underperformed. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all see fabulous, brilliant music at the BSO or wherever. Are you on the same page as he is vis-a-vis that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that Gil brings to the table, and he's become really well known for, is the fact that if you like a particular piece by a particular composer, it's pretty likely you're going to like other pieces that they wrote, and things get popular for all sorts of reasons. You might have a production of an opera that's really fantastic, or you might have some sort of shtick that makes people come back over and over and over again. They might have 30 other operas that you've never seen or never listened to, and so by hearing underrepresented works by some of those composers, 9 times out of 10, you're going to love it just as much or more.
But is that a harder sell, Heather, for people? I mean, if you know the thing and you say, I want to go hear that, that's sort of like an automatic draw. The flip side is, well, you've heard that thing a bunch of times. You probably haven't heard this combination of great Gershwin satires.
Yeah, I think there's an exoticism in it. You know, you get to go and do something that is not ordinary. And so that extraordinary it's exceptional. And it also puts other things in a context. It builds a broader route to which we have arrived today. And it's really important to take all that into context, I think.
You know, Gil, before 2 of your other players perform for us in a second, I read a few interviews with you, and I don't want to overstate this, so feel free to correct me, but you seem to be saying that Boston is not as ready as some other cities for the non-usual suspect pieces. Is that a fair characterization of what you said? And if it is, why?
I've definitely said something that resembles that, but I'm not sure I said the word they're not ready. I think they're maybe not used to is different. I've been here for 25 years trying to present music, orchestra and operatic that takes you out of your normal routine. I think it delivers a great reward for stepping out of your normal routine. And I think that there are people there who don't want to see the same operas over and over or hear the same symphonies over and over. And they've got a home with us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hear something that I'm guessing most people haven't heard before. First Lady and First Gent from Abby Paschke and Neil Ferreira. Welcome to you both.
The Army and the Navy, between us, we can run the country.
Our future looks colossal and terrific.
Why not?
If you can find the courage to be mine.
Why not?
We'll rule from the Atlantic to Pacific.
Why not?
If we get both our forces to combine.
Of course, you know your past is rather shady.
Why not? But then we two have so much on the ball.
We really ought to be First Gent and Lady.
The soldiers and the sailors all at our beck and call.
And so we got the wherewithal.
If you'll tie up with me, boy, we'll make history.
With no one stopping us, believe you me, there's no topping us. We'll be First Lady and First Gent.
We'll be the country's toast and host from host to host.
Without legality, but that's just a technicality. Let's be First Lady and First Gent. A new regime and combination. The greatest team in all creation. First Lady and First Gent. That suits our temperament. Life would be so grand when we both rule the land.
Fabulous. Abby Paschke, Neil Ferrara, and Yoko Hagino on the piano. Thanks so much for all of it. It was great.
Thank you. And we have been also speaking with Gil Rose, Grammy Award-winning conductor and founder of the Boston Modern Orchestra Project and Odyssey Opera, baritone Aaron Engelbrecht, and soprano Heather Buck. Saturday's performance of Let Them Eat Cake and Of Thee I Sing, 7:30 at New England Conservatory of Music's Jordan Hall. For information and tickets, go to bmop.org. That's bmop.org. Coming up after the new news, a conversation about the far right's underground connections to New England. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
And it is 11:53. I'm Sonia Lee. I'm here with Elizabeth Lavoie. It is our fall membership drive. We're asking for you to make a contribution to support especially Boston Public Radio. And we've got something special going on right now, but only for the next 7 minutes. Your contribution is going to be doubled. We have a dollar-for-dollar match that is in effect right now, but only, again, for the next 7 minutes. So Boston Public Radio fans, this is your only chance today to have your gift doubled and support support your listening. You can give online. That's gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Support GBH by giving $12.50 a month, and we'll thank you with 2 popular gifts, the GBH Dry Bag and the Eton Emergency Radio. The Eton Rechargeable Radio gets AM, FM, and the National Weather Service channels. It features multiple power sources, including that hand crank, so you can wind it up, get your news and weather updates, and you'll get the Dry Bag, waterproof, perfect for keeping your gear safe. Sign up as a sustaining member, $12.50 a month. Ask for that special combo. The deadline is coming up at 2 p.m., but your gift is being matched now. Go online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
That's right. That deadline is coming up, and your contribution is going twice as far. Here's the deal: we have a goal of 12 contributions by noon, and every one of those contributions is going to be matched dollar for dollar. So when you give a buck, our good friends, our Beacon Circle patrons, are going to throw in an additional $1 to the radio station. 12 contributions, looking to match all 12 here in these next just about 6 minutes. You can give online. That's easy there at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
The election is fast approaching, and GBH has you covered. From the 5 statewide ballot initiatives to seats in the U.S. House and Senate, we will bring you reporting from the GBH newsroom, key interviews here on Boston Public Radio, and impactful analysis on morning editions and All Things Considered. It's local news that keeps you in the know throughout this very important election season. Please support it by giving $5, $10, $20 a month, whatever fits your budget. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
We've had a great day of fundraising, and here's some good news. We are going to be done fundraising for the day at 2 o'clock. You get the Culture Show, All Things Considered, all fundraising free. We're only fundraising a little bit tomorrow, and then the rest of the weekend fundraising free. All day Monday, it is fundraising free. We're trying to bring you less fundraising and a whole lot more programming. If you like this idea, we're hoping you give now, especially in these last 5 minutes here. You can give online, gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Double the buying power of your contribution, but now for the next 4 minutes, thanks to a generous group of Beacon Circle patrons. Give $5 a month, they donate the annual value of $60 to GBH. Give $15 a month, it turns into $360 to help pay for Boston Public Radio. One-time gifts are also matched. The dollar-for-dollar match is only available for a short time, 4 minutes left. Get your gift match at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And we have about 8 more contributions we're looking for, and those gifts will be matched dollar for dollar. Not only that, this is your only chance to have your gift doubled and pick up that combo. You heard, Marjorie cranking away on that Eton radio. She loves the radio, and it's paired with our dry bag for just $12.50 a month on the Sustainer plan, or a one-time gift of $150. And if you do it in the next 4 minutes, that gift will be doubled. That's the deadline. You can give online. Check the gifts out there at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
You listen to GBH in Boston Public Radio throughout the year, so why not spread your membership out the same way by signing up as a sustaining member? You make a recurring monthly contribution from your bank account or credit card, so your contribution keeps giving all year round, and it only takes 2 minutes to set up, and it will be matched at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Oh, we got a fan in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you. Also in Milton, Mass. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Hearing from some folks here, we have just about 7 more contributions we're looking for. We have a few minutes left in this hour of Boston Public Radio, and that contribution is going to be doubled right now thanks to a generous group of Beacon Circle patrons. This is the last match of the day. Only chance to get your gift match during Boston Public Radio. We're hoping to hear from 7 more fans. Can we hear from 7 more BPR fans? You can give online, gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And a big thank you to a friend in Auburn, Mass. who says, Jim and Marjorie, Wait, Don't Tell Me, The World, and all the other shows on NPR and GBH have kept me sane ever since 2016 and even before. It's worth donating to keep all these shows on the air, especially just weeks out from the 2024 election. Thank you for your support, our friend in Auburn. Please join our friend and make your gift now at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
You heard Jim talking about everything that Boston Public Radio is going to be covering, especially next week. We're going to be talking about the 5 ballot initiatives, and we're also going to be having an interview in space. These are the things that you enjoy about Boston Public Radio. We're hoping you can give right now, especially as we're wrapping up this. 2 minutes left here, gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And support GBH with $12.50 a month. You'll get the 2 popular gifts, GBH Dry Bag and Eton Emergency Radio. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And this is it. Just 2 minutes left to have your contribution doubled and pick up the dry bag and the Eton Radio as a thank you gift. And just a couple more fans we're hoping to hear from. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424. We thank you for your support.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Tools of the Mind, offering a bite of tools. Professional development workshops empowering pre-K and kindergarten teachers with actionable strategies to propel children's self-regulation development. More at toolsofthemind.org. And Barrett Tree Service East. Their team of arborists and plant healthcare professionals provides sustainable management for the care of trees, plants, and lawns in the communities where they live and serve. Learn more at barretttreeeast.com.
I'm senior digital producer Megan Smith, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, ahead on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. GBH's senior investigative reporter Phillip Martin joins us, along with journalist Tim Biba and the Southern Poverty Law Center's Megan Squire, to talk about the proliferation of online platforms catering to white supremacists and the alt-right and their hatred of a free press, and in some cases, their New England roots.
I'm Marjorie Egan. A 50-year-old rule has steered mental health professionals away from commenting on the mental status of people they have not personally examined. But psychiatrists and others are split on whether that's really the best way to serve the public, especially in the face of an unusual person like Donald Trump. Harvard Medical School psychiatrist Leonard Glass joins us to talk about the limits of the so-called Goldwater Rule. All that and more ahead. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
The website poweroutage.us says 2.2 million customers are still without electricity since the storm roared across west central Florida late Wednesday. Today, Governor Ron DeSantis describes work over the past 24 hours to rescue people stranded by high waters.
State search and rescue teams across the state have continued to work around the clock to successfully execute rescue missions of individuals as well as a lot of pets on the West Coast, as well as from the destruction from the tornadoes in other parts of the state.
Several lives were lost when Milton produced tornadoes, destructive winds that toppled trees, and severe floods. Many of the communities hit had barely begun to rebuild from Hurricane Helene 2 weeks earlier. Former President Donald Trump holds a rally in the blue state of Colorado today after pushing claims that Venezuelan gangs are running rampant there. From Colorado Public Radio, Benta Birkeland reports.
Trump is speaking at a resort on the outskirts of the city of Aurora. Some have falsely claimed the city has been taken over by gangs, and Trump's campaign has called it a war zone. At a rally in New York, Trump first said he would visit Aurora and Springfield, Ohio.
You may never see me again, but that's okay. Gotta do what I gotta do.
Local officials, including the mayor, a Republican, say Aurora is safe, and Trump is conflating isolated incidents of gang activity. For local Trump supporters, this could be their only chance to see him in Colorado ahead of Election Day. For NPR News, I'm Benta Birkeland.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris continues her campaign in the Southwest. Israeli airstrikes Thursday night in central Beirut killed at least 22 people, including children, and wounded dozens more individuals. NPR's Jana Raff reports from one of the neighborhoods where attacks leveled an entire apartment building.
Here at the site of the blast, there are basically mountains of rubble, concrete and twisted metal. Early this morning, emergency responders were still digging victims out of the rubble, and there's still families wandering through here trying to get news of their loved ones. People here say there was absolutely no warning. This is a residential neighborhood, and the casualties were made even worse because a lot of these apartments had multiple families living in them. A lot of those families driven from the south by airstrikes there. Jana Raff, NPR News, Beirut.
Israel has been intensifying its attacks on the Lebanese capital and what it says are Hezbollah targets. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts is sending more crews and supplies to help with hurricane and tornado victims in Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, and North Carolina. Crews from Central and Western Mass Red Cross chapters are on their way to help aid in hurricane relief after Hurricanes Helene and Milton devastated parts of the South. They will join others from Massachusetts who have already been there. Meanwhile, the Massachusetts Red Cross has received more than $1 million in donations to help people impacted by those hurricanes. And with contract negotiations ongoing, nurses at Martha's Vineyard Hospital have voted to authorize a potential one-day strike. Massachusetts Nurses Association issued a statement saying the nurses are preparing for a strike after months of negotiations with hospital owner Mass General Brigham. The union charges that Mass General Brigham refuses to invest in permanent nurses for Martha's Vineyard Hospital and is failing to address what it calls unsafe staffing changes and patient care concerns. If a strike date is scheduled, that date will be announced once the hospital has been given a 10-day notice required by law. And Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year in Judaism, begins at sundown today. It comes 10 days after the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. High holy days are a time for repentance and reflection, and the day-long fast tomorrow of Yom Kippur is a time for Jews to reflect on sins or wrongdoings from the previous year. It's a time to ask for forgiveness and make amends, and for those who observe Yom Kippur, we wish you a meaningful fast and a safe and good year. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. On Tuesday, a few programming notes here, Jim. On Tuesday, we're going to be joined by Andrea Campbell, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth. She'll take our questions and yours, as will Maura Healey, the Governor of the Commonwealth. She'll be here at the library on Wednesday. And a first, we're going to have an astronaut zooming in from outer space, Sunita Williams, who's in space. She's one of those astronauts that's kind of stuck in space at the moment. She's going to zoom in from space, and NASA has a countdown featuring that interview from GBH Jim on its website.
That's pretty exciting.
And then all next week we're going to have the ballot question debates. There are 5 questions on the ballot in November, and we are going to have debaters with us every day, except for the day on, it's Thursday, I think we're doing the Uber Lyft unionization. I think that's only going to be one person because the no side didn't want to come. But other than that, we're going to have both sides for every debate all week long, starting at 11. Hello again,
Hello
Jim.
again. And by the way, at 1 o'clock today, Ken and Sarah Burns join us, talk about this thrilling new 4-hour film they've done on Leonardo da Vinci. You know, you might not be familiar with the website Odyssey, but pretty much every white supremacist from Alabama to New Hampshire and around the world is. There's similarities to YouTube, but a YouTube designed for the content creators who've been permanently banned from virtually every social media platform. And new reporting from GBH News attempts to peel back the curtain on how local funding keeps this vile operation running, or at least getting it started. With us at the library, GBH senior investigative reporter Phillip Barton. Phillip, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Reporter Tim Biba is a graduate student at Harvard Extension School. Good to meet you, Tim. And also with us on Zoom, Deputy Director for Data Analytics and Open Source Intelligence at the Southern Poverty Law Center and the authority on how online platforms like Odyssey fester, Megan Squire. Megan, we're really thrilled to have you. Megan, Phillip, Tim, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us. Well, Phillip, before we get into all the specifics, fill in some of the blanks about what is going on here, what we're talking about.
We're talking about a website that it's called Odyssey. That's the name. Not spelled the way you would think of the Greek mythology, but spelled O-D-Y-S-E-E, Odyssey. And it was started by a fella named Jeremy Kaufman. You may be familiar with his name because he's the fella who after the debate between Harris and Trump, suggested that she should be killed.
And there'd be celebration if she was.
That's right.
Yeah,
and he is also the founder of a site called Library. And he started this site as an alternative to YouTube. And what it's done is it's attracted hundreds of far-right organizations, groups, views, so on and so forth. And it was the Southern Poverty Law Center, which basically put together a digital threat report to talk about the gravity of this group and what it means, particularly this year, as we're seeing disinformation ricocheting all over the place. And Tim here, under Jennifer McKim, who heads up our investigation unit at GBH, she worked with Tim, and Tim basically came to her with an idea to do a deep dive into Odyssey, spurring as a result of the work of the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Okay, Megan, that's your cue from the Southern Poverty Law Center. For those of us who are embarrassingly uninformed about Odyssey and similar things, fill in a few blanks, if you would.
Sure, yeah, this website's been on our radar for quite some time because it basically serves as a YouTube replacement for folks whose content is so vile they've already been kicked off of that more mainstream platform. They come to sites like Odyssey that serve as a replacement. So we were looking at this platform for those reasons for several years, and I've reported on it a few times. Finally, my data lab got the charge to figure out exactly how much money was changing hands on this platform. And so we put out a report showing, I think we tracked several hundred of these accounts on there and calculated that they were bringing in, I think it was over $350,000 a year. Some of the folks were earning, a salary on there, over $60,000 just on that one platform, in the form of tips and donations for
and that's part, just to be clear,
content.
That's one of the attractions to these hate groups. It's not just that there's no content moderation, but that they can make money potentially, correct?
Exactly. I mean, it's a pretty close YouTube clone. That's the idea. Just the way you can monetize your videos on YouTube by taking donations, you can do the same thing on Odyssey. So they find it very lucrative.
Megan, when you talk about things being so vile on there, censorship has become a big issue in this election. Elon Musk is talking about it all the time. Of course, the guys that run X, Kamala Harris has been accused of being a big censor person in this election. What is it that is so, that you can repeat here, that is so vile on this particular website that caused it to be exiled from YouTube in the first place?
Yeah, the content creators that were kicked off of YouTube were typically that happened because they were either calling for violence or they were engaging in hate speech. So those are prohibited activities on YouTube, but they're not on Odyssey. So yeah, they were denigrating people for their immutable characteristics. It's pretty basic hate speech.
Okay.
Tim Biba, one of the things I appreciate most about Phillip's work, other than the fact that he's actually not a bad person, is, he's a pretty good guy.
We've heard some stories, actually.
In all seriousness, Marjorie and I talk about this all the time, almost every horrible thing that we talk about on the show, people, including Marjorie and I, like to think that happens somewhere else. There's hate speech elsewhere. There's racism elsewhere. There's misogyny elsewhere. Phillip has regularly brought this home. And spend a minute talking not just about this Jeremy Kaufman character, as expansively as you'd like, but there's also a private equity firm that helped bankroll the beginning of this Odyssey experience, correct?
That's right, and that was made clear in court documents that I found researching Odyssey. They were sued by the SEC, Jeremy Kauffman and his company were.
Based on what?
Based on failing to register the currency originally traded on the site as a cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
And there were hundreds of documents that I read through, and they showed the business plan of the site from way back in 2016. They showed emails between Odyssey staff and investors like Jamie Goldstein at Pillar VC. And so, I'm really interested in the infrastructure of radicalization and of hate. How did this website get built, and who makes money on it?
And is there a case to be made, or is it fair to make the case? Clearly, based on the documents you were able to see, the startup funding was helped out by this, what's it called, Pillar VC?
Pillar VC, yeah.
Do we have any reason to believe that their involvement continues, or no?
So it's hard to tell today, but looking back in 2020, Pillar VC, their initial funding in 2016 was about $400,000 of a $500,000 capital raise. That's the first time that Jeremy Kauffman and Pillar VC can raise money together. But we found in documents...
But Pillar VC knew that Kauffman, with his history, was involved in this.
Yeah, and it actually gets a little bit more interesting. In 2020, as Odyssey kind of takes over for this company library, it's the site that we're talking about, they entered into another capital raise of between $9 and $12 million. And Pillar VC is shown in PowerPoints from the SEC's case that they're leading the charge to raise those millions of dollars. So 2020 is the closest kind of connection that we can see from these documents.
Philip, my position generally on this show is when people in positions of power, like these private equity types, refuse to answer a question from a responsible journalist, it's appropriate to conclude guilty as charged. And maybe that's my approach. Otherwise, let them defend their position. Kauffman did respond to this effort in one line, and I want to read it, and maybe you can expand upon it. Every so-called journalist at GBH Boston is as evil as a reporter at Pravda, and proper society would deport, jail, or execute them.
Yeah, that's quite the comment. And at one point, and that would have been considered extreme, but on Odyssey, it is par for the course. This is the type of thing you're hearing. And the reason this is so dangerous, and the reason Odyssey is so dangerous, if you look just today, you have former President Trump in Aurora, Colorado, describing the city as gang-infested and taken over by gangs. Now, this is disinformation. Let's be clear, it's a lie. As much a lie as about Haitians eating pets. But this is the type of thing that is being echoed loudly on Odyssey. And investment firms like Pillar, which is right down the street, by the way.
Oh, it is?
Right here on Boylston Street. Right down the street.
We should stop by, Jim, after the show.
Or they should stop by here.
Right.
Go ahead.
They seem to take no responsibility. You're right, they've been silent. And what you're seeing is what used to be considered far-right extremism has been brought into the mainstream. And the mainstreaming of far-right extremism is echoed again on Odyssey by numerous sites that Megan Squire, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Tim Biba have been able to pinpoint. Hundreds of sites, including a group called the Nordic Resistance Movement, which is the United States government bans as a terrorist organization. It found a home on Odyssey. And if you think about the Nordic resistance movement and you think about the terror assault that occurred in Norway years ago, for example, on an island where white supremacists killed dozens of children, this is the result of propaganda, disinformation. It's not harmless, and it's not a matter of freedom of speech.
Well, Megan, Phillip just mentioned the whole pet eating, the immigrants allegedly eating pets, another J.D. Vance, Donald Trump thing, which apparently it was months ago on this site. And you do wonder where you hear these crazy things like Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about Jewish lasers and the Democrats controlling the storms, the weather, able to harness the weather. This is the kind of stuff that you see in addition to going after people because they're gay or whatever, or black or whatever it is. It's those kind of weird, crazy theories.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of crossover between what we might just call conspiratorial thinking and more overt racism. A lot of the channels, it's 50-50 or, just a complete mix of the two types of content. That's extremely common. And I think it's not going too far to say that some of these channels take victory laps when some of their conspiracies make it into the mainstream. So these groups were very excited when the Haitians eating pets thing broke through into the mainstream. That was a big win for them when they get, name checked on national TV by.
And as well on Fox News. I mean, you heard that on Fox News. I think Sean Hannity spent some time talking about pet eating.
And I want to say, Phillip touches on a really important point. Not just conspiracies, or you won't just find conspiracy theories on this site. You won't just find political rhetoric. You'll find actual manifestos of people like Anders Breivik, the Norwegian terrorist that Phillip just mentioned. And that is a particularly dangerous piece of information because it's a how-to guide that has been cited by other people, like the mass shooter in New Zealand a few years ago, people like Dylan Roof. That exists on this site. So when investors say, they want to support a site that has no content moderation, that's what they're paying for, and that's what they're profiting off of.
Megan, can we talk about the law for a second without getting lost in the weeds? One of the few things, and please correct me at any point if I'm wrong, that Trump and Biden, when they ran against each other, agreed upon, even though for different reasons, was that Section 230 was a problem. And that's the section that says it's the speaker who can be held responsible, not the host, the service that hosts the hate speech or whatever kind of speech there is. Is that what protects Odyssey from any
exactly
legal?
Right.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's Section 230. And remember, there's two sides to Section 230. So the same law that allows them to be not held liable for the speech that users take on that platform also allows them to decide what kind of content they want to host. So it allows YouTube to set up terms of service and say that they don't want to host this kind of content. So it's sort of a double-edged, it's a two-sided statute, I guess. I wanted to touch really quickly on the point that Tim made about the manifestos too, if I could.
Please, yeah, of course.
I think that that's such an important point because we actually saw so much of that sort of content on Odyssey doing this report that we followed up with our second report, which was on not manifestos, but on the terror videos that mass shooters make of their crimes. So in other words, that when they film themselves shooting up a synagogue or whatever, and posting those videos online, we actually got the idea for that project from the amount of that type of content that we saw on Odyssey. So we ended up doing a follow-up report just on that.
We're going to keep...
It's
I'm
bad.
sorry. I'm sorry. Did you want to finish before I...
No, that's good. I was just, yeah.
I was just going to say, we're going to keep talking about this after a quick break for Pledge, but we are talking with GBH's Phillip Martin, Tib Biba, and Megan Squire about all this crazy stuff online, making it into the mainstream and the connections between some of it and people in Boston who fund it. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
We just got some of the comments that people leave for us when they donate, and it's amazing how many people the comments have to do with truth in the news, concern about truth in the news. This is from Hussein in Sudbury, who says, keep up the great work with all the fact-checking. Thank you for the great work. I think that we've made a big mistake not fact-checking in some of these debates. I know we've debated that ourselves, but listen to Astrid and Franklin. I know that I can trust the reporting to be truthful and balanced. This is Janice from Swansea, best and truthful news, and Jim and Marjorie are the best. That's very nice. I like to read these, Phillip, because they make my head get bigger, and I feel very good by the end of the show. But in any case, we are doing this because we are raising money here, because we are a operation that's paid for more than 70% by the generosity of listeners like the people that are listening right now. And if you are inclined to donate today, we have one of my very favorite gifts today. It is called the Eton Crank Radio. I will crank it for you right now. And if you were down there in Florida, or you were in North Carolina, you were in any kind of bad weather situation, this is a wonderful thing, because the Eton Crank Radio gets AM, FM, It's battery free. That's why I'm cranking. Cranking powers it up. So AM, FM, National Weather Service channel, power sources. You can charge your phone. It's got solar power. You don't need batteries, LED flashlight. It is this great, it's like the Swiss Army knife of radio is basically what it is. And you can get that for a donation today of $12.50 a month. Plus, you can get the dry bag, which you can take anywhere you want and put your things like your radio. Well, you wouldn't put your radio in there. Well, you might.
You might put your radio in there.
You could put the radio in there. But I would think more of your cell phone or your sunscreen if you're at the beach, or stuff you don't want to get wet or full of sand. So that's what you get. The number's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And do it. And by the way, this deal with the 2-for thing, the dry bag, which Marjorie likes and uses, and the Eton Emergency Crank Radio. And by the way, this is not a lie. She has 4 of them. Do you have 4 of them? Is that true?
I do. I don't know where they all are, but they're somewhere
that's why she has
around
4.
the house.
You get both today, but they disappear as an opportunity, an enticement, a gift, whatever, at 2 o'clock. So if you're into it, and much more importantly, if you're into GBH, as we are, all of our colleagues are remarkably talented. You call 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org and contribute whatever you can. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The governor joins us next week for an hour. The attorney general joins us for an hour. Sunita Williams is going to zoom in on Wednesday from the International Space Station. But right now on planet Earth is GBH's Phillip Martin, reporter Tim Biba, and Megan Squire from the Southern Poverty Law Center.
You know, Megan, I've asked this question a million times, and Jim is sick of hearing me ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you make a big mistake in a newspaper, you get sued. You can lose a lot of money. We saw Fox News lying about the election over and over again, getting sued. I think it was 700 million or 800 million, something like that. I'm always. I think. Online, I certainly think Facebook can do a lot better job monitoring what's on there. But why does this happen? Why is this like the Wild West at these places with no kind of criminal repercussions? I don't understand it. I'm sure I'm not the only person who doesn't.
Yeah, there's been very, well, there was for a while an appetite for content moderation, but that's largely fallen off. You mentioned earlier the political climate just isn't, I don't know, it's kind of shifted. The winds are shifting. One glimmer of interesting hope maybe was the recent arrest in France of the Telegram CEO, Pavel Durov. A lot of us that watch these kind of spaces were extremely interested in that case because it represented, for the first time, really a government taking strong action against lawlessness, like you were talking about, on a platform. And that's a very, very large platform, orders of magnitude bigger than Odyssey, but a lot of us are watching that very closely to see what happens in that case. Does the platform change its...
But isn't there much tighter regulation in many Western European nations than there is here, right?
There are, but the stuff that they were claiming that Pavel Durov was letting happen on Telegram would have been illegal anywhere. Yeah, okay. There was a lot of just straight up crime and child abuse material and things like that. So that's blanket illegal. So
Tim Biba, how big is the audience for a place like Odyssey? And is there any evidence that visiting the sites cause action to be taken by those who consume them?
Megan's the expert on this, but there's between it averages out each month about 7 million people on the site in the kind of springtime, last time that I looked. That's a lot of people, and they're grouped all over the country. They're grouped in Europe. You can see through a site called SimilarWeb the traffic that Odyssey gets, and it's a large amount of Americans that are on the site.
So, Megan, you were just cited again here. What's the evidence that beyond the hate speech itself, which in and of itself is problematic, is there evidence that it motivates people to do things they might not otherwise do?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we're most concerned about, is just the general shift in tone, the attitudinal shift for the whole country, but also within each individual as they're exposed to more and more of this type of content. Their mentality changes, their attitudes change, their, I don't want to say predisposition to violence, but certainly their tolerance for violence and violent rhetoric definitely takes off. We've also seen connections to harassment, so channels and video streams that support harassing people online the users of that they get involved in that as well.
Do you get harassed after you publish what you publish?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
And you're
for
laughing.
Sure.
I
I'm
assume it's
laughing
pretty scary.
I actually pulled up the chart that we made with the story just so I could, refresh myself about the numbers and everything. And right there in the middle of the chart is one of the channels that harassed us very badly after this story came out. And I had kind of forgotten about it. And then I saw the chart. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. So,
I would also mention they love their name being cited, so I'm not going to cite their names. But there is a particular virulent hate group, neo-Nazi group in Massachusetts that puts all of their content on Odyssey as a way of recruiting young people who might look at this and say, I want to be a part of this group.
And remember, they can make money on the site. So if you see something and you like it and you pay them, that directly funds hate in real life. It funds pamphlets and flyers and marching in the Southeast St. Patrick's Day Parade with all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's right.
Well, I hate to pick on men, but it does seem that there are lots of men between like 17 and 23 and 24 who maybe things aren't going as well as they want, and they're in their basements reading this stuff all day long, and then they wind up in the news in one of those groups that's outside Children's Hospital, which you covered so well, or in another one of these marches, or shooting at somebody.
You're spot on. I mean, it's heavily male-slanted oriented. And the same group, of course, who the far right are targeting right now. And
in the election,
in the election with some success. And so, Odyssey has that. A lot of incels, guys who don't like women, who don't like girls, who don't like females. They are heavily populating Odyssey in various groups and various forms, including some of the groups that were cited in the report on gbh.org, if people would like to see and read the story.
So what should we be doing about this? I mean, do we call our congressman or what?
Well, I think it's important to be aware of the connection between social media in a broad sense, digital media in a broad sense, and hate on the ground.
Yeah.
When these folks march, they don't see themselves in a temporary position. The Southern Poverty Law Center, Anti-Defamation League, others have described groups that we're talking about. Some of these people see themselves as foot soldiers for a larger far-right movement. Odyssey serves to amplify and echo the messages they're sending out there. Manifestos, yes. Showing what they're putting up banners over highways, condemning blacks, Jews, Palestinians, others, so on and so forth, women. You're seeing these banners. They've been. It's called banner drops, and so they have. This is a multi-pronged strategy on the part of these people. Banners. Odyssey groups like Odyssey, social media sites like Odyssey. How do you amplify your message? How do you basically recruit? And this is part of that strategy.
Before we say thank you to everybody, I want to repeat one thing. Down the street, the initial funders right here in Boston, Jeremy Kaufman, whose organization said if someone assassinated Harris, they'd be celebrated. And not to mention all the reporting you've done, Phillip, about hate groups like this operating with impunity right here in our midst. And what you've done, all three of you, is hugely important and courageous, and we appreciate your work and appreciate your time today. So thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for being with us. We've been speaking with GBH's Phillip Martin, Tim Biba, and Megan Squire all about this horrible confluence of this hate speech and some awful thinking and awful actions. We're going to keep talking about this. We're not actually moving on. After this, we're going to be talking with psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Dr. Leonard Glass, who resigned from the American Psychiatric Association in protest over commitment to something called the Goldwater Rule, which silences mental health from diagnosing public figures like the former president. What's their mental state is. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Boston Public Radio. Live local conversations every day, brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with an ongoing contribution in any amount. Please sign up as a sustaining member during our fall membership drive. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, it's full. Is this full? Yeah, full pledge time. Just a handful of days. Roughly 70% plus of the money that helps support the work that we and our colleagues do comes from listeners. Less than 10%, despite what you might have thought, comes from government funding. And so, obviously, do the math. We're dependent upon your support in lots of ways. And if you like and value what we and our colleagues do here, here's an opportunity to show it by going to gbhnews.org or calling 888-897-9424. Just spend a minute. It's all it really takes. And make a contribution of whatever amount you possibly can. You want to tell people what the gift or enticement, as you call it, is today, Marjorie?
The gift today is Eton Crank Radio. It's right here. I'm cranking it. This is what you do, and this powers it up. You don't need a battery. You don't need any electricity. You need nothing. It works without any of those. And I also have the GBH dry bag. It's very pretty. I should mention to people who can't see it. It's bright blue. Our colors, the GBH logo on it. And the back is clear. So you can stick stuff in there, and you can find it when you take it to the beach. But, you know, as I always say, if we didn't have these occasional pledge breaks, which I know is not everybody's favorite thing, you would have commercials. And commercials on commercial radio, where we used to work, Jim.
We did.
It's aptly named commercial radio because you have like 3 commercials every hour at least, and they can go on for 5, 6, 7 minutes. They are really long, and that's what you'd have instead of what we're doing. So I hope you can put up with this for the short term because we're quick. We get to the point. We don't do it very often during the year. So here is the number to give at 888-897-9424. That's 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude, Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. In about 30 minutes, filmmakers Ken and Sarah Burns join us to talk about their latest on Leonardo da Vinci, and it'll knock your socks off and everything else off. It's fabulous. Joined now by Dr. Leonard Glass, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, who in 2017 resigned from the American Psychiatric Association over their dedication to the Goldwater Rule, established decades ago to prevent mental health professionals from, well, I'll let him explain it. I will say, prevented them from doing their jobs. He's written extensively about the limits of the rule, especially when it comes to the words and actions of people like Donald Trump. He's co-author of the 2017 book, which we have talked about, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, 27 Psychiatrists and Mental Health Professionals Assess a President. Dr. Leonard Glass, not only is it great to have you, but you're here to talk about a topic with which I am totally obsessed, and I'm so glad you're here to elucidate. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And I will not use the word diagnose. That's the wrong verb. So you can straighten me out on that. But tell people who don't know about this whole Goldwater Rule, as called, which was interfering with people like you and your ability to speak publicly about the mental health of someone like the former President Donald Trump.
Sure. So back in 1964, a magazine, no longer existent, called Fact Magazine, solicited the input of psychiatrists across the country. Was Barry Goldwater psychologically fit to be president? And this unselected group of psychiatrists sent in a bunch of highly biased and unscientific assessments of Barry Goldwater. It didn't help his presidential candidacy, and he wound up suing Fact Magazine and winning a libel suit. That not only damaged and eradicated Fact Magazine, but it traumatized the American Psychiatric Association, which is the formal representation of psychiatrists in the United States. So they went into a huddle, and by 1973 they came up with a solution, and the solution was nicknamed the Goldwater Rule because of the preceding suit. They propounded that psychiatrists could not speak in public about a public official without having personally examined the individual and getting that person's consent to have the findings released to the public. So that stood as the kind of don't talk about people. You have an examined rule that was taught in residencies throughout the country until the election of Donald Trump. Did you want to ask?
Well, just before that...
You should say what happened. People are going to think the way it was left is then after the election of Donald Trump, they dropped the rule. They did not drop the rule. They doubled down, right?
If only.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what's odd to me about this is that, you have an NFL player that gets hurt on a Sunday. You have a bunch of orthopedic surgeons or podiatrists, whoever you have. They're on talking about the injury of the person. So what's the difference? One's physical and one's in your head? Is that the supposed difference?
Well, the difference is that the American Psychiatric Association was traumatized and afraid that psychiatrists would put their foot in their collective mouths. And so they made this ham-handed, anti-democratic rule saying no speech identifying yourself as a psychiatrist. You could say, I'm Joe Blow, and that would be fine with them. But if you said you were a psychiatrist and you said something about, like, Tom Brady's high ankle sprain or something having to do with his psyche, you would jeopardize your license because you'd be considered as having done an unethical thing.
Can I follow up on what you both just said? Football examples, why go there? People, experts, medical professionals talked about COVID and how it was affecting Donald Trump when he had COVID. Medical experts talk about the stutter of Joe Biden. They talk about how he walks in a stiff way. So it's not an athlete, which is irrelevant. They can talk about anything that ails a president or a presidential candidate except what's in their head. Right. Is that a fair?
That is fair, and that's unfortunate. But it is the gag rule that silences psychiatrists as a medical specialty alone among all medical specialties. The professional organization that represents them says they must not speak publicly.
Okay, so I think this is the term I learned from the many writings you've done, that all of which I am in total agreement with. Is duty to warn the term that you and others use about maybe there's an obligation, maybe I got it wrong, but is there not an obligation on individuals and the profession if they see a danger, as you and 26 colleagues did when you wrote that book back in 2016 or 2017, The Dangerousness of Donald Trump? Is there no obligation on individuals in the profession to speak out?
It actually is in our ethical code that we're supposed to educate the public.
So what do they say about that?
They don't respond. We have sent them a series of suggestions as to how to modernize the Goldwater Rule. We haven't gotten a response. Interestingly, when we were being criticized by the association, we were being compared to people who collaborated with the Soviet repression, with Nazi Germany, and the person who carried our proposal forward to the association was recognized by the association, along with a number of other of us, as a distinguished life fellow. He actually did the research on the Nazi psychiatrists, and they still didn't respond.
Yeah, we got to take a break in a minute, and when we come back, we're going to have you reflect on what actually is with Donald Trump, both in 2016 and now. But before we do, I assume the answer is they don't respond to this either. When people with expertise who disclose, I haven't examined Jane Doe or John Doe or Donald Trump, even if they do that, are not allowed to speak, the vacuum that's left is that people like Marjorie and I'm serious, who have no expertise in this area, do speak. So does it concern them that those with no expertise are left with a very important issue, the mental health of any candidate for a major office, because you're silenced? Does that bother them, or they don't give a damn about that either?
I can't read their minds, but they seem much more concerned about their reputational damage and protectiveness than they are about public service or making more intelligible to the public at large something within our medical expertise.
Got it.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and discuss the state of Donald Trump's mind. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, and streaming at youtube.com.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
We love reading these comments that people make when they're generous enough to make a donation. Beverly and Plymouth, I think Jim and Marjorie are renewing my relationship as I will not talk to my significant other when they are on the radio. Patricia in Norwood, GBH is worth every penny. Beth in Lunenburg, I think it's a great show. Keep on. If you agree with even any piece of what those people and many others say, now is the time to make a contribution, whatever amount you can, at 888-897-9424, or simply going to gbhnews.org.
And the truth thing remains a theme. Here's Sarah from Cumberland. I love listening to GBH and I appreciate they are providing the truth, which is very good to hear. Okay, I've been hawking these, the Eton Crank Radio and this dry bag combo all day long. It's only available till 2. They're both really great to have, and the Eton Crank Radio is particularly great to have in a situation where, I mean, it's not, we don't need a hurricane. You know, you have a nor'easter in the wintertime. You have thunder and lightning. You have a time when you lose your power. This is something you can have there that will restore and charge your phone without any power because it runs by cranking. That's why it's called the Eton Crank Radio. So if you like what you hear on GBH, it's the generosity of listeners like you that makes it happen. More than 70% of our money comes from listeners, small donors mostly, $10 a month, $15 a month. If you like what you listen and you want to keep it going here, the number again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan live at the library. If you're just joining us, we're talking with psychiatrist, psychoanalyst Dr. Leonard Glass about the American Psychiatric Association preventing people like him, if you belong to the organization, from commenting on public figures and their mental health, and on when they say things like Donald Trump did yesterday at the Detroit Economic Club. He starts talking about Elon Musk's rocket ships and then moves on to I don't know what.
These things were coming, cylinders, no wings, no nothing. And they're coming down very slowly, landing on a raft in the middle of the ocean someplace with a circle. Boom. Reminded me of the Biden circles that he used to have, right? He'd have 8 circles and he couldn't fill them up. But then I heard he beat us with the popular vote. I don't know. Couldn't fill up the 8 circles. I always loved those circles. They were so beautiful.
They were so beautiful. Donald Trump yesterday in Detroit, Marjorie.
Yeah, I don't know what circles he's talking about, but when you and some of your colleagues decided the hell with the Goldwater Rule, we're going to write this book anyway, which climbed up to the top of the New York Times bestseller list, which was bought by all these people. Some of the things you talked about, and this is a while ago now, 7 years ago, Trump was self-obsessed, impulsive, vengeful, grandiose, compulsive liar, unable to accept responsibility or acknowledge errors. He really is unable to acknowledge doing anything wrong. That was 7 years ago. This is now. So I assume you agree with those adjectives. Is he worse?
He seems to be deteriorating cognitively. The various traits that you ticked off, they're character traits. They're part of who he is. They are the same. They've only been exaggerated by his sense of panic and exposure, and so they're more pronounced. But they're the same. They're totally identifiable.
So here's what I often wonder. There's a bunch of people, the so-called MAGA people, that are in love with the former president. They think he's great. He can do no wrong.
I've noticed, yeah.
Yeah. Then there are the other people who probably recognize a lot of these traits, but are voting for him anyway because this race is neck and neck. So you're a psychiatrist. We know you can't diagnose people from afar, but I've often wondered, what's up with that? It can't be more than, groceries were cheaper then, because you see him as a dangerous person.
Right. That was our purpose, was to try to highlight how his personality, aside from being shocking and entertaining to some people, was actually dangerous because his vengefulness could play out on a global stage, as well as within the country in terms of degrading remarks about minorities and disabled people and the like. So you don't want somebody who can't acknowledge a mistake, can't learn from a mistake, can't turn to consultants like, I know more than the generals. You want somebody who has some sense of perspective about their own limitations. And I've never heard Donald Trump acknowledge any insufficiency. He is the best at everything. And that simply can't be true. But your question is, why do people...
so many millions support him?
I'm sure there are lots of different reasons. But one of them is the sense that he is extreme, but he's for us. He's for the white majority. He's for the native born. He's for the Republicans. He's for the little guy who feels like he's been screwed over by the elites. And Trump does use that rhetoric, and some people so want to feel more powerful, more protected, that they are seduced by that, and they are willing to set aside, so he exaggerates, so he lies. The main point is he's our guy. It's kind of like having an enforcer on a hockey team, and you hated him last year when he played with the Rangers, and this year he's our guy, and we don't think he's a dirty player this year. Last year, oh my goodness. So he's their guy, and so what if he's a little dirty?
So instead of the next book being called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, you can call it The Dangerous Case of the American Electorate, as far as I'm concerned, but that's your business. Why are any of these qualities that you described in 2017, you and your colleagues, and are describing now, why are they dangerous? Even if they're offensive to people, off-putting to some of us, why are they dangerous behaviors, dangerous qualities, Dr. Glass?
Because the president is the most powerful person in the country. He has control of the military, and if he's impulsive, as he is, if he is vengeful, as he is, if he acts as though he is competent to make decisions without consulting experts because he knows more than all the experts, he's going to make mistakes, and the mistakes can be of international consequence as well as offensive and alienating.
Well, I want to be clear about something, and I assume I'm right about this because I know a number of people who have the courage you've had to speak out have said similar things. You're not saying that some form of mental illness should disqualify somebody for office, and often the examples that are cited are people like Abraham Lincoln, Churchill, etc. You're talking about the specific situation with this individual. Is that a fair statement?
And it's an important point that you made, and I'm glad you brought it up. We don't diagnose Donald Trump because to speak of his problems and the problems that he poses in his position as a mental illness only runs the risk of stigmatizing people who can do so many competent things without being interfered with by whatever condition they're actually getting treatment for or have been treated for. It's his character, it's his megalomania and aggressiveness and unwillingness to take accountability for mistakes or recognize that he has limitations. That's where the danger lies, not with having a mental illness, because so many people deal with mental illnesses and they have the courage to acknowledge that they have difficulty and they go and seek help. He doesn't, to my knowledge. He acts as though he's the smartest person in the world and without the need of consultation.
According to Dr. Leonard Glass.
So is there going to be a joint effort by your fellow psychiatrists who are willing to risk the wrath of the American Psychiatric Association to do something before the election?
Well, we came out with an updated book on Donald Trump called The More Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. I think what we tried to do, apropos of our American Psychiatric Association, was to get these revered psychiatrists internationally to come up with specific recommendations that could not interfere with our freedom of speech and allow us to interact with the public at large. That's an ongoing struggle. So far, we haven't gotten a formal response from them, despite the fact, as I mentioned, that these are highly respected figures in the field, known to all of the members of the ethics committee.
So again, the new one is the more dangerous case of Donald Trump. 37 psychiatrists and mental health experts on this issue rather than 27 the first round. Dr. Glass, I think what you're doing is a hugely important public service, and I hope you keep on doing it. And thanks for being here today.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much for coming in. We've been speaking with psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Dr. Leonard Glass. He has served as associate professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School for many years and is an attending physician, a psychiatrist, at the great McLean Hospital in Belmont. He's written extensively about the limits of the Goldwater Rule when it comes to public figures like the former President Donald Trump. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, father and daughter filmmakers Ken and Sarah Burns are back with a new film about the remarkable life of Leonardo da Vinci. They'll zoom into the BPL next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It is Boston Public Radio right here on GBH. Listener support is the most important and largest source of funding for GBH. Please take a few minutes right now, give what you can. And when you do, you'll be one of the many people who helps to keep Boston Public Radio right here on the air. GBHnews.org or call us at 888-897-9424. A good afternoon to you. I'm Mark Cohen. She's Liz Lavoie.
Support GBH by giving $12.50 a month, and we'll thank you with not one, but two popular gifts, the GBH Dry Bag and the Eton Emergency Radio. The Eton is a rechargeable radio that gets AM, FM, and the National Weather Service channels. And you'll get the Dry Bag. It's waterproof, keeps your gear safe and dry. And it features smartphone access, so you can use your phone through the touch-through window. You can see it for yourself online. Again, sign up as a sustaining member, $12.50 a month. Ask for that special combo. This offer goes away at 2 p.m. We're running out of time. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And to help us stay on track this hour, we're looking to receive 15 contributions in these final 5 minutes of the hour. Your gift right now really will help to pay for the news that you trust and help make this membership drive a great success. We're counting on you to give as generously as you can right now online at gbhnews.org or by calling us 888-897-9424.
In less than a month, you will be asked to vote on issues ranging from the minimum wage for tipped restaurant workers to the elimination of the MCAS as a requirement to graduate from high school. There are 5 statewide ballot issues in total this year, and GBH and Boston Public Radio will have reporting and analysis on each of them, presenting the issue, providing the backstory, considering the implications. This essential type of work is only possible when people who use it help pay for it. Please support the value you're getting from GBH and Boston Public Radio with a contribution right now at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Yeah, that's right. We're here to ask you to please support all that you come to GBH for. We are ending our fundraising efforts today at 2 o'clock, kind of a truncated day for us. That means the culture show, the world, all things considered, will come to you fundraising free today. We'll only be here for a couple of hours for your weekend listening, and then Monday's the holiday. We'll be back in full swing on Tuesday, but right now we're asking for your support. We are considering the holiday weekend, and we're asking you to give what you can right now. Help us stay on track for this fundraising effort. We're counting on you to please do your part right now at 888-897-9424 or go online securely at gbhnews.org.
And we're now looking for just 12 more people to give to GBH in the next 4 minutes. How about giving $10, maybe $15 a month, maybe $1 a day? Please help keep the news source you trust on your radio by giving now. We have 4 minutes left to get 12 more contributions. What part can you help with? gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And don't forget our wonderful offer we have today. It's a great combo for your sustaining gift of $12.50 a month. It's the Eton Emergency Radio and our GBH Dry Bag. 2 great gifts that go great together. You don't want to be lost without power with the Eton Emergency Radio. You know all the features features about it. The hand crank gives you the power that you need for your AM, FM radio, 3 LED flashlight, and so much more. And our dry bag will keep your valuables dry if you're out in the rain. Maybe you're doing some backpacking in the autumn months. You never know when it might come in handy. A great value at $12.50 a month or a one-time gift of $150. Ask for the combo when you call us, 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
Consider the rewarding time you spend in the company of Boston Public Radio and the daily in-depth journalism from GBH's newsroom. Consider all those unexpected moments you've been surprised and delighted by on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, The Moth, The Culture Show. If you rely on GBH for news, entertainment, companionship, then please support GBH by becoming a sustaining member. Sign up at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
I want to send a couple of thanks to Janet in Kingston, Rosemary in Warwick, Rhode Island, Leslie in Somerville writing to us, now that I'm retired, Jim and Marjorie are like my work friends. Thank you so much, Leslie. What's your reason for listening? That should be your reason for giving. They're helping us lower our goal now down 10 more contributions in these final couple of minutes. Please join with Leslie, Rosemary, and Janet with your support right now. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
The monthly sustaining membership is the preferred way to support GBH, and when you make it $12.50 a month, we'll thank you with the GBH Dry Bag and Eton Emergency Radio. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Comcast, offering Xfinity Internet, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. More information at xfinity.com. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.org. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Browning, ahead on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio. Father and daughter filmmaking duo Ken and Sarah Burns join on Zoom to talk about their new 4-hour, 2-part film for PBS, Leonardo da Vinci, the image that shows up in the dictionary when you search the term Renaissance man, and was he ever?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Let me open the lines to talk to you about the northern lights getting less and less northern by the day. Reports of the aurora made their way to Somerville and as far south as Washington, D.C. last night. Maybe you're not that into the northern lights, but what is the one earthly marvel you want to see in your life? Or what do you want to do? Your bucket list of sorts. All that ahead. Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The presidential campaigns are on another wave of repeat visits to states where polls show them running a tight race. Vice President Kamala Harris has less than a month to win over enough voters in communities on the front lines of the national debate over immigration, an issue that's exposed vulnerabilities for the Harris camp. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben is following the Democratic nominee.
Harris is spending much of today in Arizona. She is scheduled to receive a briefing on the hurricane response, then to provide an update on the response with President Biden. She will participate in that virtually. Harris has 2 campaign events, according to the White House, one virtual and one in Scottsdale. At recent events in the state, she and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, have promoted early voting, which is underway in Arizona. Trump has attacked Harris heavily in Arizona with his false message that undocumented immigrants are dangerous. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden will campaign for Harris in Phoenix this weekend. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News, Scottsdale.
Former President Trump has repeatedly accused Harris of failing to curb unauthorized migrant crossings at the southern border. He's also blamed immigrants for a series of problems in the U.S., and he's done so by making false and dehumanizing claims about immigrants, like the notion that Venezuelan gangs have overrun Aurora, Colorado. The GOP nominee is expected to play up that point this afternoon when he campaigns in Aurora. The cleanup continues 2 days after Hurricane Milton battered the state. In Florida, NPR's Greg Allen reports that more than 500 people in Clearwater were evacuated after the storm passed.
The standard apartments in Clearwater aren't in an evacuation zone. They sit in a low area and have flooded before when the water rises in a nearby creek. Residents became alarmed in the early morning hours Thursday when the rising creek engulfed vehicles in the parking lot and began coming into first-floor apartments. Rescues didn't commence until the worst of the storm passed. Now hundreds are wondering when they can get back in to retrieve their belongings and where they will live. Greg Allen, NPR News, Clearwater.
TikTok's defending itself after confidential court records about the company were revealed by NPR and Kentucky Public Radio. NPR's Bobby Allen has details.
Kentucky Public Radio and NPR obtained dozens of pages of redacted court records as part of 14 states' child safety lawsuits against TikTok. The document showed TikTok released some tools to safeguard kids as a way of, quote, improving public trust. One company executive was quoted in redacted documents as saying that TikTok could get such a grip on young people that it could interfere with sleeping, eating, and even looking at someone in the eyes. In response, a TikTok spokesman says the material cherry picks misleading quotes and takes outdated documents out of context. In a slide from a TikTok presentation, the company said after viewing about 260 videos, teens can start forming a habit. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Prosecutors in the Sandra Birchmore case say they'll bring new DNA evidence against former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell. He's the man accused of killing the pregnant 23-year-old woman. She said previously that it was his child, and the prosecution says Farwell began sexually exploiting her when she was a teenager. During a status report in U.S. District Court in Boston yesterday, attorneys said expert testimony regarding the DNA testing in this case will be presented at trial, and they have provided the results of preliminary DNA tests to Farwell's attorney. Birchmore's death was initially ruled a suicide, but federal officials say Farwell staged her body after strangling her on February 1st, 2021. Her body was discovered a few days later in her Canton apartment. Officials high atop Mount Washington in New Hampshire have broken out the snow shovels. In a statement, a statement released online, the New Hampshire State Parks Agency says that park staff awoke to full winter conditions at the summit this morning with several inches of snow on the ground, and you can see photos online. They had temperatures in the mid-20s, winds up to 60 miles an hour, and wind chill values down into the single digits. Sounds like they could use an Eton radio or two, or half dozen GBH dry bags. And you can get yours at gbhnews.org. 64 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live at the Boston Public Library and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of quick programming notes. On Tuesday here at the library, we're going to be joined by the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. The Governor, Maura Healey, will be with us on Wednesday, and we're going to have an astronaut zooming in from space, Sunita Williams. She's the one stuck up in space, at least for a little while longer. She's going to call us from space, and we're going to debate the ballot questions, every one of them. There are 5 of them every day next week starting at 11. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. And by the way, after each of those debates, you'll have an opportunity to call in and weigh in with your perspective on the 5 ballot questions you'll be voting on this season. Here with us on Zoom, legendary award-winning documentarian Ken Burns and fellow terrific filmmaker Sarah Burns. They may be related. You can Google that. Their latest is the 2-part 4-hour series together with David McMahon titled Leonardo da Vinci, about the life and times of the original Renaissance man. Here's a little sound from the film to get us in the right mindset. It's art historian Carmen Baumbach explaining that Leonardo didn't think of himself so much as a painter or an engineer, but something more.
My sense is that as he was aging, that he begins to fashioned himself more in the guise of the great philosopher, thinker, magician. And so the prophetic voice starts becoming more and more apparent in his manuscripts of this mature and later period.
The thoroughly exhilarating Leonardo da Vinci premieres on PBS on November 18th and 19th. But on Tuesday, they'll be talking about the film with our boss, Susan Goldberg, at the MFA. Tickets are sold out, not a surprise. There's a wait list, though, you can sign up for by going to gbh.org/events. Ken and Sarah, great to see you both, and congratulations yet again.
Yeah, congratulations to you both. Jim called this an exhilarating film. I thought it was an extremely humbling film. I mean, my God, most of us are here, and none of us up there. Anyway, let's start with you, Ken. Well, I mean, you've done so much great work. How did you zero in on Leonardo? Why?
Whoops.
Totally by accident. It's the first non-American project that we've done. I was having dinner with Walter Isaacson, and he suggested Leonardo, and I said, no, I do American stuff. And then I went outside and talked to Sarah and David McMahon, and they said, why not? And so this old dog was taught some new tricks, and Sarah and Dave moved for a year between the summer of 22 and 23 with my two oldest grandkids to Florence and figured it out and sort of broke the code of our own sort of language and grammar, and the result is this, I think, wonderful film. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We did, Sarah, as I'm watching all 4 hours, almost constantly I'm thinking, has this country ever produced anybody even in the same league? And then I thought about another film from the Burns Empire, Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, Sarah, is as close as we get to Leonardo da Vinci. Is he, or is he?
Maybe. I mean, it is hard to see anyone as being in the class of Leonardo. There was something about his brain that just feels unique. His intense curiosity and interest in understanding everything there was to know about everything, especially about nature and the nature of the human body and the human existence. I think Benjamin Franklin probably is someone at least worth talking about in that category, though I'm no Benjamin Franklin expert, so I'll leave that one to my dad.
Well, how about that, Dad? Is Benjamin Franklin in the same stratosphere?
No, and this is where the whole thing with Walter happened. Walter's a biographer of Franklin, and I was working on the Franklin film, and he was also a biographer of Leonardo, right. So he's pass them off, and he's correct. They're both great scientists and both great artists. But, Sarah's right. I think Marjorie's right. You feel like if the cliche is that we're using 10% of our brain, he's using 75%.
Yeah.
More of what he has. Well, and I think we've never had in a film, or at least I've never been able to say that I want somebody to take away something. I always just say we worked really hard. It's done. It's your film. Whatever you get is what you get. But I want two things from this film. I want people to want to be, as I think Sarah, I certainly know for myself, and David, want to be more like him, more curious, more active, more engaged, have life be more vivifying. And I also want no more jokes about her Mona Lisa's smile.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that most everybody knows about Leonardo and Mona Lisa, and if you took art history, you know about the Virgin and the Rocks and Virgin Mary and her mother Anne and the Last Supper, of course, and all that. But he did like everything, it seemed to me. So tick off a few of the everythings that he was involved in his life, which I think is 67 when he died, which is, I guess, not that old, young for the era he was in. But it was all this other stuff, Ken Burns.
Yeah, well, I'll let Sarah enumerate the things. I mean, the problem is that all the categories that we want to put him in, he won't recognize.
Yeah.
He's the same person. He wants to know everything. And so, of course, there's going to be science in the Mona Lisa, and there's going to be art in a drawing. Sarah, don't you think?
I think that's right. He didn't see these things as separate disciplines. For him, it was all part of this one big project of trying to understand the whole universe, I think. And so he was, the art is part of an experiment too, towards understanding these things and towards putting together these ideas. So he's observing, he's looking around in nature, he's sort of taking everything in with these incredible powers of observation, and then he's asking questions. He's looking back to the ancients and reading and trying to understand what's come before, but he's also always pushing it further, asking more questions, wanting to challenge those ideas and find out for himself and do these experiments. And so whether that's geology or mathematics or the flight of birds or a painting, that's all part of the same project for him.
We're talking to Ken and Sarah Burns, whose latest, coming out in mid-November on PBS, is Leonardo da Vinci. And again, next Tuesday, they'll be at the MFA with our boss, Susan Goldberg. Sold out. But if you go to gbh.org/events, you can go on the waiting list.
Well, here's a little sound of a reading of Leonardo's own writing, and he had these voluminous notebooks writing all the time, backwards apparently, like a mirror image.
He's a lefty, so he's trying not to smudge the page, but instead of he's going from right to left, but it's a mirror script. So just imagine, even if you're doing a grocery list, this man is concentrating at a level that we only do if we're crossing a high ravine on a narrow grade.
That's right. If you're Philippe Petit walking between the World Trade Towers.
That's exactly right. And he's doing that every moment of the day. Eggs, milk, butter, cheese.
Well, there is actually a shopping list in one of those notebooks. I love that. Okay, but here's a reading of Leonardo's own writing on the spiritual connection between nature and painting.
Painting is born of nature. Or rather, it is the grandchild of nature. For all visible things are produced by nature, and these, her creations, have given birth to painting. So, we may justly call it the grandchild of nature, and related to God.
You know, I don't know who wants to address this one, Sarah or Ken, but one of the things that you talked about in this film was the relationship. All nature is in the painting, but the movement in the painting. There was a lot of talk about the movement in the Last Supper, which people know Christ is in the middle and the apostles are all around him, but it was so distinct from other people who'd done the Last Supper because of that movement. Ken, you want to touch on that one?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, maybe, I don't know whether it's the child or the grandchild. I just think he's asking human beings to understand that they have some responsibility rather than just the stuff in front of them, to see more. And I think maybe in the Last Supper he's invented film, that it isn't just a frozen moment, but it's 8 or 10 moments. And David McMahon and Sarah and I were having a conversation a few days ago, and David said he thought that if he were around today, he'd be a filmmaker, and putting us all to shame, clearly, because he has this innate sense of time as well, that there's this human responsibility to transform materials in a service to God, to something bigger than ourselves. And also, I think he's seeing the dimensions of this moment in time where Christ says, you know, one of you will betray me, and all of a sudden, all of these other human beings are riveted in their own individual responses, and not just physical responses, but psychological and mental responses, all of which he captures.
Sarah Burns, he didn't finish a lot of the brilliant things he started.
Yeah.
Why? And what does that say about Leonardo as an artist, a scientist, an engineer?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, he's one of the most famous artists on earth. He's left us with some of the most famous paintings on earth, and yet there's less than 20 paintings, and many of them are unfinished. I think it has to do with the kind of person he was and the kind of brain he had. And I think the way that he thought about the paintings was not necessarily as products to be finished and sold, or, you know, many of them were commissioned, so to be delivered for money he'd already been paid in many cases, and many of his patrons were very unhappy with the fact that he didn't finish these works. But I just don't think that was the point for him. He was experimenting. This was a process. He was interested in how it unfolded, and one of the amazing things about his works, which we learn in part because they're unfinished, his Adoration of the Magi, unfinished painting, gives you this window into his process, the many, many layers that he applied, the underdrawing, the underpainting, how he would sort of build it up to make it, to give it dimension, that we get to see his process, and also that he's making changes on the panel, which was something artists did not do at that time. They would draw a big cartoon, a sketch, and transfer it, and then execute a painting. And he was not doing that. He was erasing and moving things and reworking it all the time because the process was so central. And at some point he would either, it would be too much for him to complete because he had taken on too much, maybe, or maybe he was just finished. He'd learned what he needed to learn from it, and he was ready to move on to something else.
You know, Ken Burns, Marjorie went to Stanford and took Altered States, the history of art, or some such course. So I didn't, or something like that. I didn't go into this with as much knowledge, but the depth that the three of you go to when you do something like this with a figure, this guy lived 500 years ago, what do you feel like your relationship is with him or her at the end of the project? Do you feel like I don't mean know about, do you feel like you know Leonardo da Vinci?
Yeah, I think after a while, there's a kind of discipline that we have. We're not interested in the tabloid stuff, the TikTok. There's not much of that to know anyway. And that, in that absence of that, you can fill that with real scholarship. And drawing on the work of scholars, you begin to form a sort of structure, a narrative structure. And part of it is figuring out how, with music, with the split screens that we employ, with modern footage in the middle of a film about a guy who lives in the second half of the 15th and early part of the 16th century, how you bring this life alive, and the first person voice, which you just heard briefly, and the third person narrator and the commentary, all of that, you do sort of feel it. He feels close to us, and that's why I think there's this sense of wanting, because of that proximity, to be better, to be more attentive, to pay more attention to nature, to be in nature more, to try to synthesize stuff. There's a moment when the critic Adam Gopnik says very early that he's trying to break the code of organic form. It sounds pretty academic, but if you think about it, what he's saying is that he's asking all of us in his own search, in behalf of his own search, to ask the fundamental questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? What am I doing? What is my purpose here? Where am I going to? These are the fundamental human questions that all of the religions ask, that all of philosophy asks. And he is asking across this panoply of expressive places, whether it's science or whether it's painting, so that you can have someone rhapsodizing about the Mona Lisa and saying he thinks he can see her heart, her pulse in her neck.
Yeah.
And I mean,
yeah, that was great.
In order to paint the 22-year-old wife of a well-to-do Florentine silk merchant with 5 kids by age 22, you've got to be able to be so good that you know everything that's going on inside of her. Not just her hair, not just the background, not just the skin, but everything, who she is and what she wants. And that's why once you've got to that point, you realize, the smile stuff is just an obfuscation. It's a mask that keeps us from ourselves asking these deep questions.
Well, you go into we mentioned all the other stuff that he examined, the human form, the Vesuvian man. He was big into that, big into the heart functioning, like 400 years ahead of his time, about the way the heart works, the aerial view.
How about the aerial view of a city?
That
my God.
By walking around the city, imagine what it was going to look like from above. Not to mention the flying machines that he imagined too. But I wondered, you have a part in the film where you've got Leonardo returning back to Florence, and Michelangelo is already there, and Raphael is already there, and you're thinking, there they all are, Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo, even though I guess Leonardo was the bigger star. But was there something about that time, and there were all the other great explorers and artists at that time, was there something about the Renaissance that allowed that to happen? They had to work hard to get their patrons, but was there something unique about that period of time?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, right? There's the time period where, coming out of a plague and the Middle Ages, there's certainly a ton of money there, right? And the Medici in Florence, these bankers with loads of money, want to spend that money on art, on beautifying churches, on having portraits made for their palaces. And so there is this opportunity for people like Leonardo, like Michelangelo, to create art and to elevate it to a kind of, not just a craft, but something that is central to civic values. You paint these huge murals for the city hall or for the church. But it's also that these men, as you're suggesting, are in competition.
Yeah.
They exist in the same place and they push each other, right? Because, I mean, literally there's a moment when Leonardo has been hired to paint this huge mural in essentially town hall of Florence, and he's doing it very slowly, as he tended to do. And they hire Michelangelo to paint the opposite wall, a mural, right? And the intent of that is to push Leonardo, right? And the idea that putting these guys literally side by side is going to force them both to be even better. And I think that's exactly what you see, is these incredible artists in this space just all helping each other improve and reach further.
By the way, it gives you chills. I'm sorry, Ken. When you see them portrayed together at the same time in the same place, it's overwhelming. I'm sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's right. And I would just like to add that the Renaissance is this period, too, where whatever's been closed and hidden during the Dark Ages and the pandemic and everything is run by the church, and all painting is sort of religious painting and it's kind of two-dimensional and flat. All of a sudden we have this burst of contact with the rest of the world, right? And Italy's sort of the main intersection of all that sort of stuff. I mean, Constantinople is too, but it's Italy and Venice and Florence. So there's Muslim influences and there's Asian, Chinese influences. All these things are happening. They're finding out that the Dutch are painting a certain way, and this is terrific. And people are painting not just religious scenes, but just regular, ordinary, generic stuff of life. And so you realize there's this rich soup, particularly in Florence, that is going to have you walk down the street and go, oh my God, that's Leonardo. Oh my God, that's Michelangelo. Oh my God, that's Dante. Oh my God, that's Amerigo Vespucci back from
Vespucci,
the Americas.
That's right.
I mean, it's all there in Florence, and it's so interesting how it produces, and clearly the cream of the crop is Leonardo. There's just, I mean, if you had to name for me the person of the last millennium, I mean, he's on the very short list. Maybe you would say Mozart or Shakespeare or Bach or Goethe, but I'd be hard pressed to put anybody above Leonardo.
Hey, Sarah, before we go, we only have about 30 seconds left. We talk a lot on the show about intra-family conflict. What's it like working with your father and your husband?
Well, we've been doing it for 15 years now, so I'd say it's working pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're zooming in from different rooms, so I don't know what to make of that.
Sarah and Ken, congratulations yet again. It's just spectacular.
Thank you so much. This was
Thank you, Marjorie.
Oh, thank you. This was great. You learn so much, and it's just inspirational. It makes you. It's wonderful. Anyway, we were speaking with Ken Burns and Sarah Burns. Their latest collaboration is the two-part series Leonardo da Vinci. It premieres on PBS Monday, November 18th and November 19th. More important, well, not more important, but of equal importance, Ken and Sarah are going to be in town speaking with GBH President and CEO Susan Goldberg next Tuesday at the Museum of Fine Arts. Tickets are sold out, but you can register for the wait list at gbh.org/events. That's gbh.org/events. Okay, after a quick break, Jim, we are ending our week with a conversation about the Northern Lights and whatever other spectacular experiences you always wanted to do on your so-called bucket list, Jim, but haven't. Do we know that the Northern Lights are right up there on your bucket list? Listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
That's right. We have the Eton Crank Radio and the WGBH dry bag that you can put your stuff you want to keep dry inside and take with you wherever you might be worried about getting wet. But I want to mention, those are only available to 2 o'clock, by the way, so if you've been hesitating, you have about a half hour to give $12.50 a month if you are interested, or $150 all at once if you want to get those two things. But I want to say that we have some creative ideas.
We do?
I mean, we're all very fond of the Eton Crank Radio, but some of the texters have said that what we really should be auctioning off
We're not, though.
or giving for gift today. This is Brian from Paxton. He says we should have the GBH Dickie because
people don't. If they didn't hear that
Jim,
show, they don't.
Jim, when he was a preteen, he was the hot boy at all the bar mitzvahs.
Maybe I was
wearing his little Dickie, which is a little short thing, a little fake turtleneck that goes down like a U shape, and we could have the GBH logo right on the Dickie.
But we don't have that. Do you know?
We don't have that.
Okay, fine.
But and Mary from Framingham, I'm going to botch this because this is a while back. She thinks we should have forget the Eton crank radio, the Elon crank radio, because you crank that up and then Elon Musk jumps around and says nice things about Donald Trump. The number in any case is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And again, the gifts are wonderful. They really are wonderful, and they're useful, and they serve a purpose. But that, I hope, is not your primary reason for giving. Your primary reason, if you do choose to give, is because you value what we and our colleagues are lucky enough to be able to do. And so if you're in that group and you either haven't given or you'd like to give a little more, you call 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Last night around the country and here in Boston, the Northern Lights made their second dazzling appearance of the year. The Aurora Borealis is maybe the one thing more than anything else that I have always dreamt upon witnessing firsthand. Unfortunately, it's one thing that has remained out of reach. I've thought about going to Iceland. I've thought about going to Norway. But it got us thinking on the show, what's the one big thing that you'd like to go to, you'd like to experience, but have not yet? Our number is 877-301-8097. I hate the term bucket list, but you know what I mean. What's the experience or thing that you really waited a lifetime to? Is it a meal, a city you wanted to visit, a live radio show at the Boston Public Library but forgot to buy a ticket? 877-301-8097. Can I say what mine are?
The Northern Lights.
Well, Northern Lights, one.
Okay.
Dinner with Joni Mitchell.
Oh, okay.
And jumping out of an airplane.
I don't believe the last one.
That one was not true. The first two were. Okay, what's your point?
Jim has been talking for years about how he wants to go to Iceland and see the Northern Lights.
Number one
and
thing.
we had a spectacular opportunity last night. People saw the Northern Lights in Rhode Island.
They did.
They saw them in Somerville. They saw them all around here.
And your point?
So Mr. Jim, who's talked about going to Iceland for the North, you went out in your back porch apparently and
didn't see anything.
Didn't see the Northern Lights. You could have walked about 2 blocks down the street, Jim, and seen them in Somerville. You didn't have to go to Iceland.
I didn't. Actually, I'm embarrassed to say.
Did it not occur to you that perhaps?
I didn't see them on my porch.
Maybe there was a tree blocking your view.
That is actually a very valid and embarrassing point. Thank you for raising it. But I didn't, and they're not going to. That is a very good point.
Yeah, very good point.
The number's 877-301-8097. Do you have anything that's on your list? I hate bucket lists. I don't know why. It gives me creeps. Is there anything you haven't done that you're dying to do, or a place you haven't been that you're dying to go to?
You know, I'm kind of a disorganized person. And if there's one thing I would really love
a house cleaner
in my life, it would be an organized house. My tax documents are over there.
That is
my
so
stuff
sad.
for the radio show is over there. There's not this pile of books on top of every surface in my house. I would like to be an organized person. I would like things to be Spartan in my home, and I'm never going to get there.
That's pathetic. Let me just say when I was a lot younger. You know what was on my list? Seeing shooting stars. And I've told you when I lived in Provincetown when I was younger.
They were last night too, Jim.
Well, they're occasionally, but not in Cambridge. You had to go to Somerville. When I lived in Provincetown, when you went out to the dunes in those old days, because it was so little, what do they call that? Environmental light or whatever the hell that's called. You could see dozens of shooting stars lying on your back in the dunes. It's really incredible.
How far are you from Somerville?
Oh, it's a huge distance, about a block and a half. Maybe 2 blocks.
Did you not know that the Northern Lights were seen?
I'm embarrassed to say, until you said it at this morning's meeting, I'm really embarrassed to say it never occurred to me that if I didn't see it on my porch, and on social media there were millions of photographs from Somerville, I maybe should have gone there. But I didn't. Arlene in Boston, you are first on Boston Public Radio.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Hi.
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 Thank you for having me.
Sure.
My bucket list has had for years going out to see the Perseid meteor showers.
Yep.
It's the best meteor shower of the year, 60 meteors at least per hour. But being on the eastern seaboard sucks because it's almost always overcast. So what I do every year, and I've been doing it for 30 plus years, is figure out where the weather is cloudy and where it might be clear, and then I drive in that direction with some friend that I can lure to go with me.
I love that.
Because you have to go someplace after midnight where it's dark skies, where there's no light pollution, And so I pretty much decided I'm going to have to fly somewhere one year.
By the way, I think this is Arlene, who's a buddy of ours. I just really recognize her voice.
Yes,
Hi, Arlene. I love that you do. I love that you do that. And I didn't make it to Somerville, and you're hopping in a car or a plane. And Arlene, thanks for the call. We really appreciate
Our
it.
producer Jamie went up to see
Montreal?
Yeah,
outside Montreal.
to see the eclipse.
See the eclipse, right? We went to the roof.
We missed that
We went
too.
to the roof of the GBH building.
Yeah, we
That's
had to
as
walk
far
up
as we
2
went.
flights of stairs, and it was really trying. And
Do you have nothing more grand than having your house organized? That's not something that generally people would put. Because you know why? Because you can just do that. Or you can hire
Jim,
somebody to help you organize your house.
If I could do it, I would have done it.
Well, hire somebody.
People say to me all the time.
Can anybody help Marjorie organize her house out there?
What you have to do is remember to
yeah.
put your car keys in the same place all the time. That drives me crazy. Because if I could remember to put my car keys in the same place all the time, I wouldn't have the problem. That's the problem.
Arlene wants to see the Perseus meteor shower.
Yes.
I want to see the Northern Lights or have dinner with Joni Mitchell.
Yep.
And Marjorie wants to know where her keys are.
That's right.
That's right. That sort of says...
Here's somebody, Jim. I think it's from James from Salem. He says the top of his bucket list would be to go get all the fixins with Jim Browdy.
He's making fun. I hate the expression fixins at Thanksgiving.
Turkey with all
That's just to aggravate me.
And
I don't like the expression. I'm
John
sorry.
and Beverly, this is a little risque.
Okay.
His
Light
his
pollution
bucket
was the
list
term I was looking for. Thank you.
Would be the Jim Browdy banana hammock featuring Jim's face.
That is really inappropriate, Marjorie.
Too late now. I already said it.
God.
Apparently, the Northern Lights are going to be on Deer Island, unfortunately, in Maine this evening. That's what Penny
Deer
Cambridge
Island is
says.
in Maine?
I think that's what she said.
like
That's
right
what she
up.
said. I mean, there's a Deer Island here, too.
Can you tell me one thing that I could... How do you get to Somerville from Cambridge? Do you...
You walk out your front door and you
and
turn
take a
left,
right? No,
or you
actually
turn
take a
right. Okay, turn
Mary,
right.
Mary, you got to wait a second. We got to take a break. When we come back, you'll be first.
Listen to Mike in Arlington.
What do you say?
Seeing a woman elected president, says Mike in Arlington. Wow, that's a good one there, Mike.
Marjorie was deciding between a woman elected president and finding her keys, and she decided she had to do what she had to do.
Okay, we're talking
God
about
help
what's
us.
on your bucket list. What would you like to see? Did
Don't
you see
say
the Northern
bucket list.
Lights
I don't
last night? Jim could have seen them.
I could have seen them. I did.
If you walked 2 minutes down
Thank
the street.
you. Okay.
Now he has to go to Iceland instead. Okay. The number is 877-301-8970. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live on youtube.com/GBH News.
Boston Public Radio. Live local conversations every day. Brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with an ongoing contribution in any amount. Please sign up as a sustaining member during our fall membership drive. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
I know you're not supposed to say this kind of thing, but you've used the expression before. What was the expression Mitt Romney, when he was for universal health care, before he was against it? What was the expression he used about everybody should chip in?
Free rider.
Free riders. And I know that's harsh.
Instead of freeloader.
And I don't really mean that as crassly as I said it, or maybe I do. If you listen to the station and you know that it costs money to get it on, and you know that 70% of our finances come from listener support, it seems to me, if you can, obviously if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, you do what you can. And if it's only $10 one time, that's terrific. And we appreciate that. If you can do $12.50 a month or $150 all at once, you can not only become a sustaining member, which means a monthly contribution automatically withdrawn from your checking account or credit card, you get the Eton Emergency Crank Radio, which we make fun of, but it is a really useful thing. And that dry bag thing, so you can put your stuff in, it doesn't get wet at the beach or the pool or whatever. Do what you can if you value what you get. And we listen to the station all day, and there's a lot of good content here that enriches our lives, and we hope you feel the same way. 888-897-9424, or you just give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, here are some of the comments people have written when they're giving their donations. Susan from Nashua says, love Boston Public Radio, from the arguments between Marjorie and Jim to the interviews with John King to the Am I the A-hole episode every Thursday.
That's horrible.
And that's very nice. Here's from Jim in Amherst, New Hampshire. Jim Browdy and I are in sync on nearly every topic. Must be the cheesecakes and Frank soda we grew up on in Philadelphia, along with healthy skepticism engendered by the Frank Rizzo era when he was the
He was the mayor.
Yes.
After he was the chief of police, and he was brutal.
He was brutal. Margaret from Plymouth. Jim and Marjorie have kept me sane and laughing for 9 years now. Keep it up. So here's the number if you want to join in to those commenters. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. We depend on the generosity of listeners to keep this operation going. More than 70% of our money comes from you guys and gals who are kind enough to donate. The number again is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. The Eton Crank Radio and the dry bag are only available till 2 o'clock, and we're working on getting the Jim Browdy Dickey.
No, we're not. We're not. Don't wait, because it's not happening.
For the next
It's not happening.
pledge.
No, it's not.
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
You're sad. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie is amusing herself. The Northern Lights thing last night, which I did miss out on because I couldn't make it all the way to Somerville.
Excuse me.
I literally am about a third of a mile from some.
You have been talking.
Okay, you've said this 40 times already.
20 years about how you want to go to Iceland.
Actually, 30 years.
And see the Northern Lights.
I do.
And the Northern Lights are 2 blocks away from you. Whoops. Whoops.
It was an error. A small error. But the point of this, the Northern Lights are what inspired this, because they are at the top of my list. As I said, I don't like the term bucket list. What is the thing? It could be a meal. It could be a great restaurant. It's a city or a place you've never visited. Whatever. What is the thing that you've been dying to do and still hope to do while you're still around? Mary in Salem, hi.
Hi. How are you?
Great.
Oh, okay, couple of things. I no longer have a bucket list because I'm kind of old, and my bucket was getting kind of empty.
Oh.
And you never really want to have an empty bucket.
Excellent.
That's a good
excellent point. Yeah, I think.
Is there anything left,
Secondly,
Mary, or what in the list?
Well, the Northern Lights were on the list, and I just got back from Iceland.
How were they?
And they were visible. Well, I don't know. I couldn't see them.
Oh my God!
Not everybody can see them.
That's my greatest fear, by the way.
Why not?
Because you can't see them all the time. Sometimes they're not visible.
Right, but you're saying other people next to you can see them?
No. They were visible to most of the people on my tour, but not to me.
What was the matter with you?
I don't know.
Okay.
Old eyes? I don't know. And they said, "Oh, look through your camera." And I couldn't see them through my camera.
Okay.
But the guy next to me said, "Oh, look through mine," and they were beautiful.
Let me ask you something, Mary. Have you ever heard of a place called Somerville? Do you know? Do you know Somerville? So, Mary, can I tell you something? One of my thanks for the call, and I really feel horrible for you. One of the reasons I've not gone to Iceland, by the way, is even though Kelly Beatty, who's on our show from time to time from Sky and Telescope, says when he leads a tour, he has a 100% hit rate. He's always seen them. How would you feel if you got on a plane, you traveled somewhere, you're paying for hotels, even though it's great to go to Iceland or Norway, and you don't see them?
It's
Wouldn't
cloudy.
that torture?
Be torture.
Torture.
Especially when you know you could have seen them.
Right down the street in Somerville. Okay, I think you've done enough. By the way, can I tell you something else? A lot of people are texting about the ballot question debates next week. By the end of the day, if you go to the Boston Public Radio Twitter account, we will tell you which question will be debated which day, so you'll know which of the 5 that concerns you want to listen to. Kathleen.
Oh, Jim.
What?
Somebody else said not only they were in Somerville, but he saw them right there at Harvard University in Cambridge, of course.
Well, that's an extra block.
That's an extra block.
Wouldn't go that far.
Here's a good one.
By the way, I did go out on my porch. You
made the big move from the couch
I don't know
to the porch.
which was not easy, by the way. One of my kids helped me get there. And there was nothing except like a big tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they were behind the tree.
Okay, what's your point?
Here's one. I would love to do a high-class cross-country train trip, luxury
Me
dining
too.
cars,
Me
large,
too.
comfortable sleeper cars, cozy spots, not tourist destinations, to deboard and explore for the day.
Didn't Jared do
did
like
that.
the what's called
I think
Express,
he went
the Orient Express or something?
which is luxurious. People say it's absolutely great, and some of these train trips go through the mountains and all that kind of thing.
Okay, and again, if you just tune in, Marjorie's so-called bucket list, they have somebody arrange her tax forms in her house,
Dana
which is
Randolph
really bold.
says,
can we take a call
He's
or
very
what?
modest. He says, someday I hope to acquire a bucket.
Oh, that's so you can put a list in it. Okay, Marjorie is really... Okay, now Kathleen waited so long, she hung up.
I'm sorry.
They're all hanging up. Who's next? Who is not hung up? Because Marjorie is going on endlessly about Somerville. Let's go to Lee in Foxborough.
A lot of people want to see you wearing a Dickie, Jim.
Lee in Somerville, they're about 40 years too late. Lee in Foxborough, welcome to the show. Hi.
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 Some months ago, I decided that I was getting old and I needed to work on my bucket list, so I recruited my sister and her adult daughter and my adult daughter, and we're all going to Yellowknife, Canada, at the end of March to see the Northern Lights.
And? Oh, you mean next March?
Yes, this coming March.
Good for you. How excited are you?
I'm very excited. We just got our plane reservations last week.
And are you nervous, like that woman who called a minute ago, that you might get there and not see something, or you're a positive person?
Well, one reason I picked the Yellowknife is because it has a very high percentage, high rate of seeing the Northern Lights in a few nights, yeah.
Hey, can you remember to call us or email us or something us when you get back after March, Lee? We'd love to hear what the experience was like. Thanks, and I hope you and your sibling or whomever really enjoy it. Lee, thanks for the call.
Here's somebody trying to help me with my car key problem.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, they say
get a tag.
If you have a box, when you walk into the mudroom, you throw your keys, my wallet, and watch, anything they want to in the box. But the problem is you don't remember to put them in the box.
Exactly.
That's the problem. You know, I have a place, but the question is remembering to put it in
Can
place.
I help you with something else? Yeah, with the tax thing, you put a little file that says TAX on it, and then when you get a tax thing, you shove it in the file.
That's right. You've been telling me that
and
for a long time.
And that is essentially how it works.
And
Marianne in Hopkinton, you're next on Boston Public Radio. You got a minute, Marianne. Hi.
Hi. Big fan.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Two bucket list items.
Please.
Number one, the tulip bloom at Keukenhof in Amsterdam.
That I would put on mine, too. That's great. What else?
And number two, this speaks to you, Jim.
Yep.
If you want to see that night sky in total blackness, where you can see the Milky Way and shooting stars or whatever meteor storm there is, Baxter State Park in Maine is one of the few places on the East Coast where they have that total darkness you need.
Where's Baxter State? I don't even know. How far up is it in Maine? Do you know? I can look it up, I guess.
Yeah, you should look it up.
Have you been there?
I don't have a map in front of me. No, but it's a bucket list item to do that. Because I wanted to see the stars, too, and I did some research. Apparently, that's the only place local to us.
It's great. I'm going to look it up. I'm making a note as we speak. Yep. Baxter State Park in Maine. Thank you so much, Marianne. We got to take a break.
Listen to this, Jim. Somebody says all you needed to do was look through your camera on the phone last night in Cambridge to see the Northern Lights. Barely visible with the naked eye, but you can see them through the camera. You didn't even need
Aiden said that
to
at
go
the
to
meeting this morning. Did you ever know that?
Well,
even if you can't see it, your camera can?
Man spent his whole life waiting to go to the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
You think you might have done a little investigating and know that you could see them better with the camera than through the naked eye, but I guess you
Well, the reason I did
really
not, if I
this.
may, is I was on kayak.com trying to get flights to Iceland.
Oh, okay.
Or to that place in Canada, whatever it is.
We're going to take a quick pledge break, but we'll be right back to wrap up this discussion of Jim's tragedy involving the
Very sad.
Northern
Margie
Lights.
thinks it's funny, though,
His bucket list.
My misery, her joy.
877-301-8970.
No, it's true. Everybody knows that. It's true.
It's the number.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
I'm going to talk first because I can't listen to this Dickie talk anymore. Really. I mean, it's like another one of your sick obsessions.
I'm being deluged with texts about the Dickies, Jim. People clamoring to see when a Dickie is at the top of their bucket list.
Okay, then they should keep waiting. They can go to Somerville. I'll be wearing one in Somerville later tonight. Carol in Leominster writes, after she made a donation, which we much appreciate, I can't imagine my life without your station. How great is that, by the way? I can't imagine my life without your station.
That's really
And by the way, nor
nice.
can I. Melanie in Newburyport, listening to the show is like having a conversation with really smart, funny friends. I love Jim, Marjorie, Jared, Andrea, callers, texters, and whoever laughs so loud in the background. That is great.
That's Jamie. Great. Jamie laughs in the background.
He does.
I laugh a lot, too.
I think it's just the humor of me. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
You have anything to say or no?
Here's another one. I love listening to GBH, Marjorie and Jim. I always learn and laugh along with it. There
That's
you
great.
go. So anyway, we're almost done for today.
We are.
We have 15 more minutes, less than 15 more minutes of our show.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in the dry bag or the Eton Crank Radio, which is a real lifesaver if there's a situation where the power goes down or you need to crank your phone, etc., this is the time to get it. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org is where you can give it securely. And it makes us feel good to read these comments from people because they're very thoughtful and they're very lovely, and it makes me feel good.
The value of this emergency, this crank radio. I mean, I know we're not living in Florida where 3 million people lost power. There's not a storm here where hundreds, if not thousands of people lose power here. And that would cause panic in my life. And if you have something that doesn't require batteries, that can either be charged solar or simply by crank, there really is value to this thing in addition to the fact that it's a cute little item kind of deal.
How many people have given up their landlines? A lot.
Yeah.
They give up your landlines. And obviously you're...
Not in Somerville. The number's 888-897-9424 if you want to make a contribution, or you go to gbhnews.org. And I'll tell you, not only do the contributions mean a lot to us, because as we say, 70% of our money, more actually, comes from listener support. When you take time to write these notes, I hope people realize that while we laugh when we read them, I can't tell you how much it means to us to know that you appreciate the work we do.
Joanne Bellrica loves the show, happy to be part of the GBH family. How about that?
Well, that is what you become when you're supporting it, don't you think?
Yeah, radio is a very intimate medium.
Okay, that's it.
It is. Okay, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie, it must be another Dickie text. I mean, this is really sad.
No.
It's like so immature. In any case, we were talking because I have waited my whole life to see the Northern Lights, and Marjorie's amused I didn't go to Somerville where I could have seen them, and I live a quarter of a mile from Somerville. What's your point, Marjorie? What do you want to say?
The other day, we did a salute to roasted vegetables.
I know we did. It was a huge segment.
And
One
Donna
of our
on
best.
the road says her bucket list is to roast every vegetable.
She can't read it. This is how immature and unprofessional Marjorie is.
To roast
and I
every
have to work
vegetable
with this.
known to mankind.
Oh, that's beautiful. Another anonymous texter, another fool. Jim, I thought you had said your all-time bucket list trip was for a double Mac and a side of nuggets. I mean, this is really out of control. Oh, by the way, take Laura and Sharon. She's going to tell me how to photograph whatever.
Hi, Laura.
Laura, you got to be quick because we're almost out of time because Marjorie's been laughing too much.
Jim?
Yeah, what? What?
I want to help you out because I know you could be an excellent Northern Lights photographer. So first off,
Yeah.
you need to download an app called Aurora Pro that will alert you when the aurora is visible in your area.
That is not true.
It is true. It will even wake you up at night if it happens while you're sleeping.
Okay, what else do I do? You have 15 seconds. What else? Aurora, now, go ahead. What else?
All right, you do need to look at it through a camera.
Yeah, okay.
It can be a regular camera or your iPhone.
Okay, yeah.
You've got to unlock your night mode on your iPhone.
Whatever that is, yeah.
Yep, it's in the upper right corner.
Okay, fine.
You need to adjust your exposure time. To see the Northern Lights, you got to give it like anywhere from 6 to 10 seconds.
Okay.
And while that's going, you have to be perfectly still or it's going to blur.
That's not going to work.
We have to go. I
Perfectly
apologize
still.
because
Laura,
we're
I'm
out of
gonna
time.
check out this
But we
Aurora
have
Now app. Thank
two very
you.
more important tickets.
Text, we
About
call
a text
them.
we had about bucket lists. Mission New Bedford, I'd love to see Jim and Marjorie alive, but alas, I cannot afford the ticket prices.
He didn't say alive. He said live.
Live.
He didn't say alive.
That's right. You better hurry up. It may not last long, the rate we're going. Another anonymous texter says they want to make it to Boston Public Radio, Boston Public Library to see us in person. And they are hoping to get tickets, but they've been stymied in their efforts.
Marjorie
you know
just
why?
had the most fun she's ever had.
You know why? They're stymied in their efforts?
No,
Jim?
I don't.
Because there are no tickets.
Okay, that's fine.
They're stymied.
Okay, we're done,
in their
Marjorie.
efforts.
Thank you.
Okay,
You
thank
have 1
you.
minute. Talk fast.
Okay.
Culture show, right? Coming up live right here at the
That's
library.
right.
Stick
it's
around,
coming up,
everybody.
and we're going to be back Monday with the first of our
I
week-long
think
string
it's
of ballot
unlikely.
questions from both sides on question 5 about raising the minimum wage for restaurant workers, and Charlie Sennett from Ground Truth Project, NYU medical ethicist, and Brooks Tingle, president and CEO of John Hancock Insurance on the longevity economy. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, John LaClaw Parker, Janie Bologna, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Kevin Pace Jr., Olivia Corcio, and Juan Jose Cadena, and the guys at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to the Culture Show, which is coming on right after us. You can
Very quick, Sean in the car, how many Dickies would fit in a dry bag? Do you know?
I'd say about 50.
I'd say somewhere near that. I'm Jim Browdy.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning
Thank
in.
you
Have
for
a
coming,
great
everybody.
weekend.
We
Hope you
appreciate
can tune
it.
in on Monday.
Thank you.
Boston Public Radio today was made possible all thanks to our listeners who made voluntary contributions. That's just how GBH and the public radio model works. The money you give keeps Boston Public Radio on the air. We're here to encourage you to make a monthly gift right now. Sign up as a sustaining member during our fall membership drive. It really just takes a few minutes online at gbhnews.org or by phone 888-897-9424. Good afternoon. I'm Mark Cohen. I'm joined by Liz Lavoie.
And this is it. Support GBH by giving $12.50 a month. We'll thank you with two popular gifts, the GBH Dry Bag and the Eton Emergency Radio, but they are only available for the next 7 minutes. That Eton radio, it's a rechargeable radio. It gets AM, FM, National Weather Service channels. Has a built-in LED flashlight, perfect for giving your cell phone an emergency charge. And you will also get the Dry Bag, a 5-liter waterproof bag designed to keep your gear safe and dry in all the elements. Sign up as a sustaining member, $12.50 a month. Ask for that special combo, but it's going away in just 7 minutes. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Yeah, that really is a great combo. You don't want to miss out on that. And when you make your call, and we hope you do, know that we're looking for 20 contributions to help us round out this hour. 20 contributions in the next 7 minutes. If you've enjoyed, make it part of your bucket list, in fact, to give to GBH in any amount. All gifts truly do matter. That's why we're here asking you to put a value on your giving and then go to the phone or online with your support. Again, 20 contributions to help us round out this hour. We hope to hear from you next online at gbhnews.org or by phone 888-897-9424.
You rely on GBH and NPR for news that keeps you in the know, and that news is even more important during this election season when the direction of our democracy relies more than ever on an informed public. GBH and Boston Public Radio, it's where you'll find discussion on the 5 statewide ballot initiatives, plus key interviews again here on Boston Public Radio. It's election news and discussion that cuts through the campaign clutter, and it's only made possible with listener support from you. Please stand with GBH by giving as generously as you can at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
We're ending our fundraising efforts in just a little bit at about 2 o'clock this afternoon. And this way you'll have the Culture Show, The World, all things considered, without fundraising efforts. We'll be back for a little bit tomorrow morning for our weekend listeners. We hope you'll make a contribution then. And then for the holiday, we're off. We'll see you on Tuesday. But in that time, we want you to make that gift now. Help us finish today as strongly as we can. We're hoping to hear from you next at 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org.
And this is great. We are now looking to receive just 16 contributions in the next 5 minutes. Meeting that goal will help us stay on track for this membership drive and ensure we have the money needed to pay for Boston Public Radio in the months ahead. Please give $10, $15 a month or more on the Sustainer plan and be one of those now just 14 people left needed to give in the next 5 minutes. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And don't forget, 2 o'clock is our deadline for your opportunity to get the Eton Emergency Radio and the GBH Dry Bag. A great combination of gifts, yours for only $12.50 a month on our Sustainer plan. We hope you'll take advantage of that. This is really 2 of our most popular thank you gifts, but it's for a limited time. Your time running out, just about 4 minutes left to get in on this. We got a picture of the combo for you if you join us online at gbhnews.org or call us 888-897-9424.
And a big thank you to Joanne in Billerica, who says she loves Boston Public Radio and she's happy to be a part of the GBH family. We are so happy to have you in the GBH family, Joanne. Thank you. If you want to join Joanne, you can make your gift at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Also want to send some thanks out to Nikki out in Winthrop. So good to hear from you, Nikki. Thank you for your support. Alice in Concord, thank you. William in Seekonk, thank you so much for your generous gift. And we want to thank Lisa in Rosendale, everybody getting involved. It's really a community effort. Support Boston Public Radio, all the shows that you you enjoy and value right here on GBH Show. We're asking you to put your value on it and give only what your budget allows. Our goal now down to 8 contributions in the final 3 minutes. That's great news for GBH. We're not there yet, though. We're hoping to hear from you next. Please take those couple of minutes right now at 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Perhaps you listen to GBH for the continuity we bring to your life. No matter what the day brings, GBH is here keeping you informed and entertained. I'm asking you, become a monthly sustaining member right now because GBH is here for you with the NPR and GBH News you trust every time you push that button. It's easy to enroll at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
We're really happy about this offer we have today. It's a combination of the Eton Emergency Radio and the GBH Dry Bag. Yours for a sustaining gift to GBH of only $12.50 a month. It's a special offer today. It goes away in about 2.5 minutes. So if you've been thinking about it, do not delay. Get that call started or go online with your support. The Eton Emergency Radio, the Swiss Army knife of radios, and our Dry Bag keeps all your valuables nice and dry if you're out in some wet situations. That could be backpacking, canoeing, or even commuting on a rainy day. It's a great value at $12.50 a month to support GBH, but time running out. Get that call started now. Pick up this great combo at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And this is great. Just 5 contributions to go in the next about 2 minutes to stay on track. We are so close to that goal. The success of this membership drive depends on all of us joining together. Please help pay for the news by making your contribution now. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
888-897-9424. Don't forget your last call to get the Eton Emergency Radio and the GBH Dry Bag. It goes away now, so get that call started, and thank you for your support. 888-897-9424.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked #1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the 2nd consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday. And Boston Children's Hospital, ranked the #1 pediatric hospital in the world by Newsweek. Boston Children's, where the world comes for answers. bostonchildrens.org/answers.
Trusted, local, news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, more than a dozen states, including Massachusetts, are suing TikTok, alleging that its algorithm is deliberately designed to get people hooked, violating consumer protection laws and spurring a teenage health crisis along the way. We'll look at what it means to be a society under the influencer. From there, the controversial Donald Trump biopic The Apprentice is out, following a beleaguered journey to its theatrical release. From legal fights to fighting for a distributor, can a dramatization of Trump's life give us insight into the former president in a way that real-time, non-stop exposure to him can't? Plus, it's the end of an era for Boston's fine dining scene. Chef Barbara Lynch is closing all of her remaining restaurants, while it's the beginning, or so we speculate, of a new Bond franchise. We take on that and more in our Week in Review next on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. At least 9 deaths are now linked to Hurricane Milton, although there are reports of higher fatalities since the storm plowed through west central Florida late Wednesday. The website poweroutage.us reports more than 2 million people across the peninsula were still without power. Tens of thousands more people in North Carolina are in a similar boat following Hurricane Helene. President Biden's defending his administration's response to Hurricanes Helene and Milton, accusing his political opponents of spreading misinformation and harming storm survivors navigating conflicting information about federal assistance.
I think it's a permanent state of being for some extreme people, but I don't think it's what the country's about. We're breaking through with it. are breaking through with the truth.
President Biden speaking a short time ago about the FEMA response to the 2 major hurricanes to strike Florida in as many weeks. Former President Barack Obama campaigned for Vice President Kamala Harris in Pittsburgh last night. NPR's Tamara Keith reports Obama delivered a blunt message to black men.
At a campaign office in Pittsburgh, Obama said he's been hearing there isn't as much enthusiasm among black voters for Harris's run as there was for his. In particular, he said, among black men. Polls indicate former President Donald Trump may be making some inroads with black male voters, and others may not vote. Obama said men are coming up with all kinds of excuses, but he thinks
you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that.
His message? Get over it. And Obama encouraged the volunteers in the room to talk to the people on the sidelines. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
Former President Trump campaigns today in Colorado. The United Nations says the Israeli military has repeatedly fired on positions used by UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon and that at least 4 peacekeepers have been wounded. The Israeli military says it's conducting a review of the incidents. The attacks have drawn widespread condemnation and, as NPR's Ruth Sherlock reports, have prompted Italy's defense minister to summon Israel's ambassador in protest.
Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto said the Israeli military hits on the UN peacekeeping mission UNIFIL's headquarters and positions in South Lebanon are unjustifiable and could constitute war crimes. The Israeli military says it opened fire near a UNIFIL base and that Hezbollah fighters operate close to the UNIFIL posts. It says it warned UN forces in the area to stay in protected spaces. Italy is among the biggest contributor of soldiers to UNIFIL that has personnel from dozens of countries. Other countries, including Russia, India and Turkey, have spoken out and called for restraint. The United Kingdom says it is, quote, appalled by the reports. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News, Rome.
It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. At noon today, Harvard faculty and staff held a silent protest against the school's banning of a dozen students from using the Widener Library after they protested inside late last month. Laura Jimenez is an instructor at Harvard Medical School. She says that it's inappropriate for the school to single out and silence students for protesting against what she calls genocide. She adds that as a Lebanese American, Israel's incursion into South Lebanon was hitting close to her family home there.
We actually have some family friends from the south whose village is being bombarded, and they are sheltering in our home in a Christian village just 30 minutes outside of Beirut. And there was a bombing the other day in a nearby village, which caused the house to shake.
The protesters are asking the university to reinstate access to the library for the students that were disciplined. Harvard did not immediately respond to request for comment. No get-out-of-jail-free card for former Fall River Mayor Jaisal Correa. A judge ruled this week that the 32-year-old Correa must stay behind bars, saying his sentence was already generous. Herald News reports that Correa must serve out a 6-year sentence after being convicted of wire fraud and extortion worth more than $800,000. Before and during his time as mayor, Correa ran multiple schemes to fund a lifestyle of buying luxury clothes, cars, and other items. He's currently behind bars at FCI Ashland in Kentucky. 66 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Support for GBH comes from you. And the Shakespeare Concerts, presenting an evening of music for voices and string quartet, Friday, October 18th, at BU's Marsh Chapel, beginning at 7. Admission open to the public. No ticket or registration required. And Comcast, offering Xfinity Internet, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. More information at xfinity.com.
Welcome to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-host James Bennett II and Culture Show contributor Joyce Kulhawick. She's an Emmy Award-winning arts and entertainment reporter, president of the Boston Theater Critics Association, and you can find her reviews on joyceschoices.com. It's time for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Here's what it sounded like.
States across the U.S. are joining forces to hold social media app TikTok accountable for its addictive content. A bipartisan group of 14 state attorneys general filed a lawsuit today alleging that TikTok violates consumer protection laws.
An artist's controversial entry to the Colorado State Fair is likely to lead to a long legal battle over just who owns his work.
Hello, this is Donald Trump from Mr. Cohn. Thank you so much.
Donald who? The first rule is the simplest. Attack, attack, attack.
It's going to be the finest building in the country. In the world. It's going to be spectacular.
I'm in Gloucester for lunch with Barbara Lynch. Barbara changed the way Boston eats. She opened some of the greatest restaurants the city has ever seen. Number 9 Park, Menton.
Theaters are having second thoughts on how they pay tribute to actors who've died recently. Following the death of Gavin Creel, the Broadway League announced that only select theaters would briefly dim their lights in his memory.
As you just heard, we're a nation under the influence of influencers. TikTok is being sued by a number of U.S. states, alleging the app is designed to be addictive and is causing a mental health crisis among kids. The movie Donald Trump tried to prevent anyone from seeing, The Apprentice, finally opens in theaters. From there, who's on tap to be the next Bond girl? Odds makers have their predictions on the succeeding 007 seductress. Plus, a dim-witted decision by Broadway theaters on partially dimming the lights for the late actor Gavin Creel. And it's closing time for Boston's Barbara Lynch. The fine dining chef is shuttering and selling off all of her remaining restaurants. But first up, more than a dozen states are suing TikTok, alleging that it's deliberately addictive and causing a mental health crisis among teens. This is a major lawsuit. Of course, Andrea Campbell, Attorney General of Massachusetts, was among the people at the forefront of this, and they have sifted through documents by TikTok that are basically paving the way to them understanding how this is intentionally drawing in kids to be watching their videos late at night so that they can expand this and have kids watching their ads. And as I looked through this and I was really paying attention to what the attorneys general in these number of states are doing, it reminded me of the big tobacco lawsuits from a number of years ago, and that you have a company that has been deliberately, flagrantly violating consumer protection laws to addict kids here.
It's an interesting comparison, and I would say just with one difference, and that would be that for the longest time the tobacco companies were actually denying that they were bad for your health. I think at this point the data is really out, and everybody knows that TikTok and social media, et cetera, are compromise people in certain ways and create addictive behavior that erodes your mental health, et cetera, et cetera. But they claim that they have put safeguards in, which they are lying about. They have not put these safeguards in. And did you know that TikTok is way more regulated in China? There are only certain times when people can be on TikTok for limited amounts of time and only certain times during the day. So it's a very different thing.
And of course, it's still a Chinese-owned company, which is a whole other issue that we can talk a little bit about because there is legislation underway to remove TikTok from Chinese ownership and have it only move to the U.S. That's moving its way through the courts. But James, where do you come in on this?
Yeah, I think that if lawmakers are really serious about, getting a grip on TikTok, this is a much more interesting and, I'm not a legal mind, but I would think sturdy kind of argument to, impose some kind of regulation other than, that forced sale that, should be coming possibly, next year. It's not also just the fact that they're lying about the safeguards that they say they have in place. To me, what's more striking is that the appearance of them is there and they know that they don't work. They're not providing their moderators with enough training, with enough resources to sift through the material that's being posted on this platform. And, I would encourage folks, if they can, to go through that filing. It's a fascinating read. One of the things that really jumped out to me. Two was the issues that these attorneys general were having with the live feature. They're likening it to operating a virtual strip club. Almost, sucking these kids in, enticing them with these performances, using real money. There's a massive kind of a legal economic implication going on as well. But the brains are just so vulnerable at that adolescent age.
Well, here's Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell at a press conference this week discussing why the Commonwealth is one of the 13 states suing TikTok right now.
Today we're suing TikTok for designing its platform to be addictive and harmful to young people and deceiving the public about its efforts to keep its platform safe. This case is not about regulating the content that is shown to TikTok users. It's about TikTok's own bad conduct. It's intentional design choices that trap young people's time and attention and hurt them in the process. Our goal is to hold the company accountable for its unlawful conduct and to stop the company from engaging in practices that exploit our young people for profit.
So I think two more things for me here. One, they have these beauty filters that so many young people are relying on. So many young people are seeing themselves out in the world by way of these beauty filters. And again, moving this forward, as other lawsuits have cited as well, 50% of girls say they don't look good without filters. This is how it's affecting the society, leaving aside the dopamine effect and how they're luring people to step way past their bedtimes and thereby even ingesting more ads, which also are really preying on notions of beauty and how people should comport themselves in the world according to what people on TikTok are telling them. But I think the other really interesting element here is how this becomes an extraction from society at a moment when you see Kamala Harris, Donald Trump leveraging TikTok for this presidential campaign. We see that we've talked on this show about the businesses that have sprang up out of TikTok. So there's a whole commerce entity here. And we find so many users now getting their news not from newspapers, not from television or radio, but from TikTok.
Well, you've just raised about, 5 different issues that we could spend an entire show on. I don't have any trouble with the beauty algorithms. I don't have any trouble with the content necessarily on TikTok, but I do have some trouble with the logarithms that are specifically designed, as Andrea Campbell notes, to addict people to this. And it's sort of comparable to slot machines. When you go in and you just have to keep going. And they know that. And they're a business. And kids actually know that now. We all know that. So it comes back to, I think, what you said, James, which is laws. But laws are always lagging behind AI. They're always lagging behind technology. I think, wasn't there a suit about a year ago against Meta for exactly the same reasons? Yep. It's been a year. It's tied up in court. There are going to be appeals. That's going to be another 4 years. And by that time, TikTok and all of these other platforms will have reiterated themselves so that they'll be like fiddling with our brains directly via Bluetooth by then, and we'll still be screwing around with the law.
Right, and just to also just throw in really quickly this thing about the beauty filters. Again, this comes out of the filing, but there's that note that the brains have not really developed a sense of self in adolescence, and so you can only imagine what it's like to be figuring out who you are while having the reliance of these filters that feeds into the peer pressure to keep trying on quite literally, a new face. It's really hard to comprehend.
But I think parents have to watch that. I mean, to me, that gets into that area of free speech and what you choose and choose not to do and expose your kids to, etc. So I think we all need to be informed. I don't think the law is necessarily the way to go, but it's the only tool we have at this point. But boy, it's up against AI on every front.
Well, speaking of AI, because that's where we're going next, and this also comes from the Department of Irony, that an AI artist has filed a lawsuit stemming from unauthorized use of his AI-generated work after it was refused copyright protection. This has been a really interesting case to follow because there was this artist, his name is Jason M. Allen, and a couple of years ago he entered the Colorado State Fair digital competition. He was very upfront about the fact that he was using AI. He ended up winning the top prize.
Yeah, hello, it's digital.
Yeah, so what this means is that he used Midjourney, which is an AI platform, and he entered a number of keystrokes. He actually said he entered 624 text prompts, and that allowed him to get to this image. It's called Teatro de Opera Spatial, which is this sense of an opera happening on stage in some galaxy far, far away. It's quite enchanting and entrancing, I would argue. So he gets upset because he gets a lot of attention for this, and then he wants to copyright protect his work so that other people can't use it and sell it. However, the courts have decided because he can't prove what exactly was original and what came from AI, they're denying him copyright protection. So this is moving us further into this realm of AI and where we exist in the arts with artificial intelligence, and to what degree it is going to, I guess, guide what we're looking at in the future and what protection do we call them straight out artists or AI artists have in this regard?
Well, I mean, coming back again in a weird way to law, the precedent, for this, if you remember back in 2018, it was the monkey or the ape who took the selfie. And then there was the question, right, about can the monkey hold a copyright? And the law that we have now, and also across a lot of other nations in the world, is that it's tied to human authorship. Exactly. Yeah.
And I would argue that it does have human involvement because humans program these tools. I view this as AI as another tool that artists can employ. I mean, there's a computer scientist named Stephen Thaler who claimed that his AI system is the artworks creator. He created a system which then created work. To me, what resulted from that confluence of input is a work of art, and it's original. MoMA, I believe still, right now, I could be wrong about this, has a huge...
They do, it's still there, yep.
Which I saw a huge installation in their lobby, 2 stories high, of an AI-generated program based on all the input from all of the artwork in the entire museum. And this mechanism is what I'm going to call it.
But it was done by an artist.
It was done by an artist, and it generates new work constantly, and it never repeats itself. To me, that's a wholly original piece of work.
And it's mesmerizing. You go to the MoMA and you can't. It's hard to get through the lobby now because so many people are sitting there and watching it. But this becomes a question here because I agree with you on that point. However, we're also talking about the use of artificial intelligence, which is scavenging the internet for images far and wide, and it could be pulling up everything from a sunset you post to your Instagram to an image Picasso painted that's in a museum, and this is how it's creating. And so this is where the courts are getting tied up. Can you prove how original you are?
And they're saying in this case,
and the courts are saying in this case, you do have to prove it.
Yeah, I would disagree. Tell it to Marcel Duchamp, who in 1917 took a urinal, flipped it upside down, and called it Fountain.
Or Andy Warhol, who much later portrayed Campbell's soup cans to great effect that we still talk about today and know today.
To me, it's all original. It's art.
Yeah, I like what you said about how the machine can scour the images that are already extant, right? Part of me wants to think, though, and I have a huge anti-AI art bias. AI art really freaks me out. We're entering into uncanny valley territory. I'm very aware of this.
Buckle up, Jim.
I mean, I know. But, over 600 plus commands, right? To me, I'm thinking that should be enough as copyright. You've created the path for the images to be found, and that itself can be your own original work. Maybe not what comes out on the other side of that proverbial black box.
And I should just pause for a second. For people who don't understand what we're talking about, these commands, you type in dog on moon, okay, dog with yellow hair on the moon, dog with crater-filled moon. So this is what we're talking about in getting up to the 624 prompts.
Yeah, you
just so people have the background.
Various data sets, I think it's called, right? And then that computer program can generate an infinite number of results. But a human being, wanting to have an experience, programs it.
I don't know that I buy this yet. The more we're talking, the farther away I'm moving from it, I have to say.
The really fun story could be someone looking at this piece of art, this, space opera, and then noticing something incredibly niche that they posted, and they said, wait a second, that is clearly a derivative of a thing I posted on Instagram 5-10 years ago.
What isn't derivative? Even Shakespeare was derivative,
This reminds me of The Fifth Element or some of the George Lucas films as I'm looking at this picture. Again, if people want to look it up themselves, it's Jason M. Allen, whose image we're talking about, this space opera. But Joyce, I also see your point, too. This is a really hard one as the courts are deciding. This is probably going to make its way up to to the Supreme Court, I would venture, because we, again, are in uncharted territory here, and how do we figure this out?
Yeah, and good luck with that. I would love to be a fly on the wall and listen to the Supreme Court discussing what is and isn't art. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
It was the court that decided porn is what it is, right? What was the famous?
You know it when you see it.
You'll know it when you see it too, I guess.
But this approach, I mean, honestly, all of these artists are in the business of not just creating content, but also asking us to understand and to reevaluate what an artist is. What does an artist do? What is the role of an artist? And that's changing and evolving as we evolve, and technology along with us.
All right, we're going to evolve the show here. You're listening to our Arts and Culture Week in Review, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. Next up, we're talking about the new Donald Trump biopic, The Apprentice. We have early reviews. This is The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Hurricane Milton has caused damage and destruction throughout the state of Florida. We'll hear the latest on recovery efforts. A group of Harvard faculty are protesting what they call unjust sanctions on students who participated in the silent, peaceful study session at Widener Library. And a new exhibit at the John Cabot House Historical Museum tells the story of the enslaved black population of historic Beverly. That's all coming up at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure. Proud sponsor of GBH's Stories from the Stage, Life is a Laugh, a live in-person event Wednesday, October 16th at 6:30. And Furniture Consignment Gallery, committed to the circular economy for over 30 years. Open now and during their Furniture Fest event, running now through the 14th. More at FurnitureConsignment.com.
The ongoing war in the Middle East has caused a lot of fractures here at home. Two friends, one Palestinian American.
This past year was a stress test to a lot of relationships. Not all of them survived.
One Israeli American.
I have lost many friends because of political disagreements.
Praying together and breaking bread together as they work through their complex emotions about this war. I'm Esteban Bustillos. Find the story now at gbhnews.org.
Movie Donald Trump doesn't want audiences to see. His attorneys issued a cease and desist letter for the Trump biopic, The Apprentice, but it's out in theaters today after an arduous journey fraught with legal fights and lack of support from what I would describe as a fearful Hollywood. So we have talked about this on the show to reacquaint people before we start talking about the film, now that we've all had the chance to see it. This is a film that has been gestating for at least 7 or 8 years, since I believe 2018 when it really started. And this charts the rise of Donald Trump coming up under Roy Cohn in 1970s and 80s New York. Roy Cohn, of course, legendary, notorious figure who also was associated with McCarthy and became Trump's mentor in many ways. And that this is what plays out in the film. It was released at the Cannes Film Festival. Huge success there, lots of applause, critics raved about it. Donald Trump, his attorneys didn't want people to see it, issued a cease and desist letter, but then what happened was some sort of self-censorship, and that none of the Hollywood studios, Netflix, Sony, MGM, none of them wanted to pick this film up. It was ultimately picked up by Briarcliff Entertainment, which released Fahrenheit 9/11, the Jamal Khashoggi documentary. They are not afraid of controversy, so they are the ones that have put this into theaters today. It's in about 1,700 theaters across the country. That's the backstory. We have all seen it. Joyce, you are the dean of arts journalists here at this table, so let's lead with your take.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw it yesterday for the first time, and I wrote my review immediately. It has been a dull summer, and I thought, the fall was headed for disaster as well. And then I saw this film. It is easily the best film of the season so far. And I'll bet Trump is really upset that he stood in the way of this film being released, because it's coming out at the worst possible time.
Yeah, if there wasn't the legal battling, it could have been released months ago.
Yeah. The way I looked at this movie, and it is extremely well written by Gabriel Sherman, who's from Newton.
A journalist, a longtime journalist.
Exactly, longtime journalist. Ali Abbasi is the director. He directed The Last of Us. It's extremely well told. These performances are amazing. But the overall concept is like a new take on the Frankenstein story. It's really Roy Cohn as the creator of this monster that he did not see coming. And the final scene, I'm not going to tell you too much because there's a lot in here that we sort of already know, but the way he's packaged this up is that it culminates at Mar-a-Lago, which looks like it's lit like a haunted castle. Yeah. And there's this confrontation which is painful and emotional, and it's dark and it's gloomy. And we don't know what the ending of this fairy tale is going to be. I mean, it's still coming, but it is a really intensely gripping, nightmarish, cautionary tale.
James, before we get to you, let's listen to a little bit of the movie. This is Sebastian Stan as a young Donald Trump and Jeremy Strong, of course, of Succession fame. By the way, both are already being talked about for Oscars. I would agree. I think Joyce would too. We'll find out from James in a second. But here's Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn in the new film The Apprentice.
I should have talked to Dad before announcing the Commodore.
He'll be convinced when he reads about it in the Times, okay?
Well,
you create your own reality.
It's not that easy.
Truth is a malleable thing. But these are too tight, I think.
All right, well, my dad is tough, Roy. He's very tough.
Well, that's why you got to spread the news like it's already happening.
No, you can't push him around very easily.
Fine, okay, fine. Then, let him push you around. Is that what you want?
So, James, what's your take?
Long live Jeremy Strong. That's the first thing that I want to say. But the thing about Donald Trump that I find so endlessly fascinating is that if someone is completely divorced from the knowledge of who he is and the office that he once held, there's a question mark above his head. How and why does somebody become that person? And what this movie did to me, I came into it looking at it as almost kind of an explainer piece that tries to just hold your hand through the steps that it takes for someone to have, I wouldn't call it a fall from grace, but a massive transformation into someone that they weren't even 10 years ago. What we just heard in that clip, right, is Trump kind of kowtowing towards his father, expressing some trepidation towards Cohen about these plans. And we kind of see this timid guy there's a grain of humanity in that. And what this movie does, it shows how that is corrupted by, this megalomaniac tendency.
I'm so glad you put it that way, James, because the film itself is kind of a blueprint for how Trump got made. Mm-hmm. And then it shows you the blueprint that Trump follows. That would be hard for anybody who's watched him operate to argue about. Number one, attack. Number two, deny. Number three, claim victory no matter what. We see that. But it's definitely not a fall from grace. It's like there was an unformed being there who then threw, and the script does develop this, his relationship with his father, the way the father pits his older brother against him, what the cost of being a loser is. We see it all. It's clear, it's gripping, it's dramatic, it's killer.
And I would add the same to all of this. I thought it was a really well-made film. I also think that I am actually skeptical about Donald Trump's motives here, because this is a way, ultimately, to draw attention to the film by fighting it for so long, a film which he had to have known was going to be released at some point. Because if I was to remove myself from the critic view and look at this as a journalist, I would argue that people who support Donald Trump are going to love this movie, because all of the things they love in him, how he's an attack dog, how he surpassed the mentor, and I would argue that in this film you actually end up having a degree of sympathy for Roy Cohn, which is a little bit hard to believe given the tactics, the blackmailing, what he did to people. I think everything his supporters love about him they will find in this movie, and everything that people who don't like Donald Trump will find that they see satisfied in this film as well. So it's an interesting exercise there as well. But again, pulling back into just what it is as a film, I thought really well done, really well written.
Oh, yeah.
It tells the story based on research and what's already documented, and becomes very compelling, even visually too. And again, as we said, lots of Oscar buzz about this film.
The actor who plays Trump is equally astounding.
Without being a caricature.
Oh, he's completely real, right down to the little accent. And supposedly, the filmmakers have invited Trump to view the film and then sit down and talk about it with him later, and he supposedly hasn't seen it yet.
I would love to see
but
that.
the thought is that he might actually like it, and I would agree. Maybe his followers wouldn't be swayed one way or another. They would just love it.
Well, this can only mean one thing: Bond, girl Bond. The predictions are out, and odds makers have released their short list of who will likely be the next 007 seductress. By the way, we know what language we're using in saying Bond girl. I don't think we'll be saying Bond girl for much longer as we go forward, maybe in all the previous films. But there's a lot of buzz coming out right now. In fact, there was a piece in The Guardian just about 4 hours ago about when we will see the next Bond, because it has been a long time now since Daniel Craig stepped down, but people are kind of, for some reason, reaching this fever pitch. I think because Barbara Broccoli, who now is shepherding this whole franchise forward, recently gave an interview and said that there will be no Bond universe. We will not be seeing TV shows. We will not be seeing the Bond musical. There will be another film, and she kind of indicated it's closer than ever to being there. We'd heard that Aaron Taylor Johnson might be the next Bond, but now people have gone on the Bond girl, soon to be presumably Bond woman speculation. What do you think, Joyce?
Well, I think that the reason we're speculating on all of these things is, again, because of AI. I swear, it's because we can measure and... Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Shall I scream louder than I already do?
No, just pulling your mic closer does it.
No, thank you. Again, it's AI. I mean, I think it's AI-driven. We can measure everything, count everything, how many followers we have, I think it drives competition, whatever we can measure. So now we're measuring what the odds are on the Bond girl. And by the way, there shouldn't be any Bond girls. There should be Bond boys. And 007 should be a woman. And maybe it should be Lupita Nyong'o. She would be great, right? Or Viola Davis or somebody like that. So yeah, and I like Eve Hewson.
Just like you said, you can quantify anything. You can also bet on anything, it seems, too, now that we're talking about the odds, of the Bond girl selection. But, to your point, I think part of the curiosity is, and I'm not going to ruin anything from the last iteration of this franchise, but when Daniel Craig stepped down, there's a room for a turning point where we redefine who Bond is and what it is for. And it's gone through that already. When Pierce Brosnan came in post-Cold War, it had to make that adjustment. And in this last clutch of Bond films, that female lead has really kind of complicated, right, what the purpose of the Bond girl originally was. Very kind of male-gazy. We all knew what the setup was going to be. We all knew what the quote-unquote payoff was going to be for her presence in the film. But what we saw, just over the past maybe 10, 15 years is, Ava Green, portraying a character who is an emotionally sore spot for this Bond. Lea Seydoux' Madeline Swan is a genuine love interest that he cares for. And for what it's worth, my money is on, Bond getting reinvented again, going back to a bit of a campier style, but with this intense self-awareness of what it actually is, and maybe a little deconstructivism on the Bond girl part.
Well, this is a good time to revisit the vintage Bond. Here's a montage of some of the Bond girls playing with the Bond boy of yesteryear.
What's your name?
Ryder. Honey Ryder. My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
Black Queen on the Red King, Miss
Solitaire.
Major Amasova? Or may I call you Triple X?
I wondered when you might arrive.
So you are the mysterious Octopussy.
Jacinta Johnson. My friends call me Jinx. I'm the mummy.
Vesper.
My name is Dr. Madeline's wife.
So this reminds us of all those great, the Sean Connery era. I'd seen a lot about that too, and I think in one way that's the only way they can go, because I think they had started to box themselves into a corner. I don't know about you both, but I got to a point where in watching these 2-hour, 45-minute films, I had no idea what was happening. I just started paying attention to the cars because the cars were really, really beautiful. So maybe if we can go back to a simpler time and I understand what's actually happening, that's going to be interesting to figure out how they present the Bond woman in that form. And really, you can argue that Daniel Craig was among those who chiefly blew this up, because he said there will be no more Bond girls in this. He was the one who insisted that Phoebe Waller-Bridge of Fleabag fame come in and help write these and really give it a reboot and bring it into this era.
And that didn't work. She was not very good, and the script wasn't great. And, I don't really care what iteration this comes back in. I just want to see it come back and let them have, as you said, some fun with this.
One last quick thing, in that last film, there was 007 as a woman that we got to see a glimpse of that, and so
Lashana
something to think
Lynch.
about, going forward.
Lashana, absolutely. I think they should play with this and have fun, and I'd love to see a female Bond, but we have to have Bond.
Well, before we leave this, a little tidbit. Barbara Broccoli, who is shepherding this, she is also into theater, and if you remember Sing Street, which was here at the Huntington Theater a few years ago, she is the one who's bringing that to the West End as a musical. So that's why I said that she's not going to make Bond into a musical. She's keeping musicals where they are, but that Huntington show, if you saw it, it is going to the West End summer 2025, so probably will end up back on Broadway, so she's a big theater producer too.
A little tidbit that I ran across, which was that apparently 60 years ago, somebody had suggested to Ian Fleming that maybe Bond be a woman, and the actress they suggested was Susan Hayward. Do you know who Susan?
I did not know that.
Do you know who Susan Hayward is?
Tell me about her.
Oh, thank God. Oh, well, she's known for a film called I Want to Live, and she was accused of murdering somebody, I think, and she was going to go to the electric chair, and she's a very powerful, potent actress, but you can see where that went, absolutely nowhere. But it's not a wholly original idea, but I'd love to see it happen. Yeah.
Well, before we leave our little movie segment here, we just have to talk about what happened on this flight this week, where Qantas Airlines gives new meaning to snakes on a plane because they broadcast a racy movie with nudity and sexting to all the passengers. This is unbelievable. So apparently the in-flight system went down, and they being the flight crew, decided to choose one movie that all the passengers would watch, and they chose this film Daddy-O, which is R-rated and pretty explicit. And I think I'm blushing right now as I'm just talking about this.
Oh, you are. I'm looking at you.
Yeah. I have to start fanning myself here. So all of these people,
I took my jacket off, right?
including children, are watching this movie. And how did this happen? They had to shut it off halfway through.
A computer glitch, clearly.
for the flight crew too?
Yeah, no. Actually, they said that the crew decided to show this movie after input from a number of passengers. So either these passengers knew what they were doing or trying to deliberately, have some fun at everybody's expense, or they really didn't know what it was about.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Daddy-O does sound like it could be a family-friendly
maybe
movie.
Starring Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. But, maybe airlines can vet the kinds of movies that are available on those entertainment systems.
Yeah, and it's Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn, and they get into this sexy repartee, and there are sexting going on, and you see close-up shots.
Look at Joyce pretending she can't say the word.
Sexting, excuse me. But I'm thinking maybe they thought because it took place in a taxi, the whole thing's set in a taxi.
Yeah, how
they
bad
thought
could it
they were
be?
getting how sexy could that
drama.
get?
Yeah.
Or maybe they thought it was the comedy series Taxi. I don't know. Danny DeVito wasn't involved.
Well, I know. I think a lot of people got frequent flyer miles out of that one because they were able to argue not appropriate. Well, coming up, it's the final course for one of Boston's most celebrated chefs. That plus a dim-witted decision by Broadway. It's all next on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
In Japan, whaling is on the decline because people increasingly see it as unethical. But there is another perspective on eating whale meat.
saying whales are special, whales are something that is a beautiful creature that you shouldn't eat. It just feels to a lot of Japanese like cultural imperialism.
Why whaling is seen differently there, next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Boston Figurative Art Center, an art gym where creative people of all skill levels can build community through co-working, art sessions, and events. Open every day from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Learn more at bostonfac.com. And AARP, proud to sponsor the second Massachusetts Senate debate on October 17th at 7. Voters can get ready for Election Day by visiting aarp.org/MAVotes to learn when, where, and how to vote.
Dozens of bills are targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at public universities. Students are worried it will make campus life less welcoming.
I think it's really disappointing that we're going to be seeing less representation for our student body.
And I fear that means that more students are not going to come to our university.
I have no words. It's so incredibly upsetting to hear.
I'm Kirk Carapezza. We take a look at what's behind the DEI backlash in our podcast, College Uncovered. Get it today, wherever you listen.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, joined by co-host James Bennett II and Culture Show contributor Joyce Kilhaywick. She's an Emmy Award-winning arts and entertainment reporter, president of the Boston Theater Critics Association, and you can find her reviews on joyceschoices.com. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes Barbara Lynch. She rose up to become one of Boston's most influential chefs, who also had a compelling personal story, coming from the projects in South Boston to reaching restaurateur heights. But this week, we learned she is closing and selling her remaining restaurants. This is it's almost hard to believe because for so long, you couldn't come to Boston and participate in dining and think of dining and what the food scene was without Barbara Lynch. It wasn't just hers exclusively. It was also Todd English and Gordon Hammersley and Lydia Shire, who's still cooking. But Barbara Lynch came up from this city, was of this city, never left this city.
And transcended this city.
City and made it a foodie city. We think of Number 9 Park, B&G Oysters. She most recently opened Rudder in Gloucester, the butcher shop. She did create cookbooks, but she didn't create merchandise. She said, I'm a cook, I'm a chef, I'm not a brand. But she really changed, I really think, the notion of fine dining in the city. But in recent years, there have been allegations about abusive behavior and bullying. There was a drunk driving arrest, and so everything has changed, and she's, at this point in her life, decided to, with pending lawsuits, it seems, also to close the restaurants and or sell the remaining ones she has.
I have so many thoughts about this. I mean, without Barbara Lynch on the scene and those restaurants, I feel like places that I want to eat at are disappearing. And I'm thinking about Menton and Drink and Sportello and B&G Oyster and all of those restaurants that she created, and they were conceptually adventurous. The food was delicious. They were sophisticated without being stuffy. You could hear yourself eat and drink and talk in them. So she brought women into the spotlight. She's one of the I think the only woman who holds the title of Grand Chef Relais and Chateau. She's just such a powerhouse. No matter her personal demons, she knew how to create restaurants that people wanted to dine in, and I hope she comes back with a new concept at some point, because she was ahead of the craft cocktail curve and eating at counters in a sophisticated way. I can't say enough about her.
Agreed.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview earlier from The Common with a Boston Globe reporter who was explaining that in the course of her research, it just seemed that a lot of her staff understood, they acknowledged what was going on in those kitchens, and it seemed that they genuinely wanted to see accountability and correction and wishing the best to kind of get back onto that track. So yeah, maybe there is room, right, for a kind of return in the future.
Well, she's nothing if not inventive, and she held her own for a long, long time in this city. And I think that some of those restaurants are going to continue when she finds buyers. And I think the head chef in one of the restaurants. Is it maybe it's which one? Number 9 Park may take over. I don't know. I mean, this is speculation.
It seems like that, which I think also speaks to her legacy, that there's so many people who want to carry it on. And just, again, her story is extraordinary. Coming up through South Boston, living next to Whitey Bulger, and teaching herself how to cook, barreling into kitchens, pretending she knew how to cook when she didn't. But this was just her sheer determination that ultimately, I think at about 10 years ago or so, she was making $22 million a year, or her restaurants were generating $22 million a year in revenue. And this is somebody who started pretty much from nothing to create what she did. And so this is a very significant moment.
Her mark is all over this city, and we're turning a page here, and I'm not so sure it's a great one. She's even spawned a top chef, Kristen Kish, who cooked at Menton, and now I think hosts that show, Top Chef. So I'm just crossing my fingers that she comes back with a new concept, because I think we need that. Dining has really changed. Places I want to eat at are disappearing.
Well, and she is the one who made a lot of this happen. Maybe not the bad parts of you not wanting to eat at restaurants, but the scene that we have today, she was so instrumental in that. Well, next we move to Broadway. And the recent death of actor Gavin Creel is shining a light on the ritual of dimming marquee lights after a notable figure in the theater world has died. It's kind of fascinating to read about this history, because more and more now, when somebody like Stephen Sondheim or James Earl Jones dies, we read about how they're dimming the lights on Broadway. And this is a tradition that goes actually back to, I think it's 1952, and Gertrude Lawrence, who died when she was starring in The King and I. And they
buried her in her costume.
Do you know where she's buried?
No.
Little Jared trivia, she's buried in my hometown, Upton, Massachusetts.
No way!
Yes, I forget why, but she is. But why this has surfaced is because recently Gavin Creel died, a really phenomenal actor. I knew him just a little bit, so he was a phenomenal human too, and I think this is partly what's leading to this outcry. He was a Tony winner. He'd been in any number of shows, Hello Dolly, Hair, Prometheus Bound here at the American Repertory Theater, and they, I guess, maybe thinking that he wasn't far enough into his career, that only a few of the theaters would dim their lights, and people had a huge problem with that.
Yeah, it seems that, from what I could gather, right, that there isn't a universally accepted, I guess, rubric for, determining how many lights get dimmed and for whom. It's like the partial dimming is for if you were great but not universally known. And what I would lob back as a question is like, A, how do you quantify that? But then B, why not use a full dimming to raise the profile of that actor, of that artist? It's a very short ceremony, right? This dimming of the lights.
I think it's 1 minute, 15 minutes before curtain time.
Right, and so to me, if you really are acknowledging and really honoring an individual, and you're like, maybe not a lot of people didn't know who they were, relatively, raise that profile. What's the harm in that?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because meaning could get lost. And it's sort of like how I feel when I watch, nighttime TV, and I see on Colbert or a guest comes out and everybody immediately leaps to their feet and it's an instant standing ovation, and it drives me crazy. If it's Meryl Streep who walks out there, I'm good with that. If it's Selena Gomez who walks out there, I may not be. I think these things have a certain kind of meaning. They have a ritual, but it is impossible to quantify this.
Because in death, it becomes something altogether different, I think.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking we are all going to die. Thank you, Joyce, for that uplifting little reminder. But this is like the in memoriam segments at the Emmys or the Oscars, where they play the video and you see the people, and sometimes you hear thunderous applause, and then there's the editor who gets maybe a couple claps. You think, oh, that's just terrible. Why do they even participate in this? Before we continue with this, we do want to share, this is Gavin Creel. Again, we're talking about this because this is a terrible story. He was diagnosed with cancer in July and just died at the end of September, again, at only 48 years old. But he had appeared very recently here on our stages, here at the Emerson Colonial Theater and Into the Woods. Joyce and I are both on the Theater Critics Association. We honored him with an Outstanding Visiting Performance Award in 2023, and here was his acceptance speech.
Thank you so much for this wonderful honor. I'm so moved and touched, and I just want to thank everybody at the Elliot Norton Awards, and to say that Into the Woods has been a joy, and I'm so glad that Boston audiences loved it. I am obsessed with Boston. I had the best time, and it's just a wonderful thing to get recognized like this. So thank you. and have a wonderful night. Okay, bye.
that related to the costume and the performance.
He played the wolf. He played the wolf. It was so great.
And so I think just even his personality shines through in that little acceptance speech. And so there is a committee that's going to be formed now to look at, should we regulate this, which sounds a little ludicrous.
I think we should not regulate this. This is what I think we should do. I think every theater should decide when they want to dim the lights for whom, and leave it at that. I'm big on personal choice in many matters.
So
right, because right now it's the
in-house decision.
It's a couple leagues that are deciding on behalf of a bunch of theaters.
The Broadway League makes these decisions. Now, how are we going to decide, oh, you have to be 80 by the time this happens? Well, what happens? Yeah, every theater should decide.
Because the thing to consider, too, is that, again, coming back in a weird way to social media, fandom, appreciation, they can be pocketed. And so, while maybe recognition isn't large over here, it could be extremely devoted in this one digital corner as well.
Social media and AI rears its ugly head again. It governs everything.
That's just to emphasize your point, Joyce.
There you go. That always takes me by surprise.
When it's not emphasizing your points, it's signifying our lightning round.
Yes.
And the lightning round is the headlines that caught our attention this week. Joyce, what's yours?
Okay, mine is the new show, Nassim, which just opened. It's a Huntington Theater presentation, opened at the Calderwood. It involves a Iranian playwright, Nassim Soleimanpour, and each night a new performer comes out, opens a box that has a script that they've never seen before, and they have to perform it on stage in front of everybody. And the person who kicked that off several nights ago was Jared Bowen, and you were incredible up there, so endearing and so fast on your feet. And it's a different show every night, and it is deeply humane and heartwarming, and it's about people connecting with each other beyond their governments and politics. See this, Nassim. It's on till October 27th.
And did you mention that the performer has no idea what they're doing before they walk on stage?
No idea. You did not see the script.
By contract, I was not allowed to know a thing. It was terrifying.
So believe me,
one of the most impactful events of my life.
We were all hanging on by our fingertips for and with you.
Thank you. James, what's your headline?
Yeah, so over the course of this
If it's not about me, we don't care.
Okay. Over the course of this weekend into Monday the 14th, it's the inaugural Lynn Film Festival, showcasing a series of 5 films documenting the musical history of Massachusetts. It includes 2 films about the radio stations WBCN and WFNX, 2 hip-hop documentaries looking at hip-hop communities in Lynn and in Worcester, and then the kind of flagship film of this festival is Road to Ruin, about the influential Boston indie impresario Billy Ruin. And if you can't make it out, a couple of those films will be made available for streaming after these initial screenings, so get your dose of some local music history. This is the inaugural Lynn Film Festival, so hope they'll be back for next year too.
And it's happening all weekend long.
All weekend long until Monday.
So my headline is news that came out of the MFA yesterday, the Museum of Fine Arts. This is really huge for them. They received a $25 million gift, and this is going to allow them to really go full throttle with modern art. This is an area which the MFA perhaps has been lacking in terms of its collection, but this is going to change things. They got a grant from this foundation, or a gift from this foundation, the Weiss Foundation, basically because the couple love modern art. They love what the MFA has. So this is going to allow them to, as they say, re-envision its presentation of modern art for the first time in an entire generation. They're able to hire a curator, a conservator. There'll be 4 new galleries, 5,600 square feet, spreading from the first floor to the second floor, and they will be able to showcase a lot of their collection which has been in storage. And as I was saying, the MFA maybe doesn't have as much modern art. We're talking about Picasso, Louise Bourgeois, Calder, Giacometti as other museums. Even if this doesn't allow them to necessarily acquire the art, hopefully it signifies to collectors and to other people who want to give gifts. They are now very serious about this. They have dedicated this space, and it'll draw more people into gift giving because, especially for this period of art in the 20th century, that's the only way for museums to add to their collection at this point is if it's gifted, because it's so out of their price range that museums can't afford it. So I was very excited to see this happen for the museum and how they're able to push this forward. So we are very happy for them. Well, that is all for our show. Joyce Kulhawick is a Culture Show contributor who joins us regularly. She's an Emmy Award-winning arts and entertainment reporter, president of the Boston Theater Critics Association, and you can find her reviews on joyceschoices.com. Joyce, what are some of the reviews you have just posted? What should we be paying attention to?
The Apprentice. You've just got to, I just wrote it yesterday. Go on joyceschoices.com and take a look at that. I'm about to post another slew of reviews tonight, and I'll be talking about Sing Sing. I'll be talking about a few other things. So you'll have to see.
And it's a time to go to your site because this is Oscar. This is what we see all the Oscar contenders come out.
Well, this is when the best films of the year come out because believe me, as I said, it was a really deadly summer. So all of the best of the best is coming out right now in the fall, and then we'll see what happens at the Oscars. Yeah.
And James Bennett II, of course, covers all things arts and culture for GBH Digital and Radio. You'll find his work at gbhnews.org. James, what are some of the things people can find of yours posted right now from your recent reporting?
Well, I want to just kind of just share that I got to spend so much time with not so much time, but a decent amount of time with the Longwood Symphony Orchestra, an orchestra of medical professionals that are collaborating with kids from Project STEP. So if you want to see a combined orchestra of adults and very talented children, they're in rehearsals now in preparation for a concert this weekend, and you can find that next week on gbh.org.
And thank you to our live audience here at the Boston Public Library today. It is great to be with you, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Culture Show. You can join us on Monday for British folk singer Billy Bragg. We'll also be joined by artist Jeffrey Gibson on the making of his new mural on the Greenway. And Julia Swanson is back with a public art tour, this time celebrating Indigenous culture. Thanks today to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, and Olivia Corshio. Also thanks to City Table, the Lenox Hotel, and the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Jared Bone. I am retired from performing after that one performance from the scene, not from the Culture Show. I saw that wide-eyed look in your eye.
Oh, I know. When you said I'm retired, I'm what?
no
Come on,
big
we
announcement.
got to keep arts and culture going.
But people should check that show out. And actually, if you go tonight, you'll see Tony Shalhoub stepping into this. And again, the performers know nothing about the role until they take the stage. Again, I'm Jared Bowen. Have an art-filled weekend.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library!
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.